Jian Wushuang knew he had to be careful. Falling in the northern spacetime was one thing. He could arrange for a rebirth. But falling in the Realm King continent? There would be no coming back from that. Got it. Jian Wushuang nodded as he took the treasure, looking at the disheveled face of the Realm King. He reassured, I haven't left yet. Besides, I can hide my aura. I'm not foolish enough to seek out Shilu. Currently, this threat was the only one continually watching him. However, Shilu's divine power was only SOSO, reaching demigod at best. To him, it wasn't a threat right now, and once he reached the 8th tribulation, it would be even less of a threat. The Realm King, slightly embarrassed, added, I forgot to remind you, Shilu seems to have allied with the mechanical clan of the southern spacetime. Do you remember the intelligent brain you killed? He had an older brother who is looking for you and has brought several metal beings that were teleported away back then. They have special means to track you, and their divine power surpasses that of a demigod. Ah! Jian Wushuang was startled. Before he could ask further, the Realm King hurriedly left. No wonder he had advised against going too early. Turned out there was more than one threat left behind. This didn't even include the pink meatball. Then there were the more powerful Cuter and Zamasu, who went to participate in the Realm King's trial. Such a small northern spacetime had attracted the attention of so many powerful beings. It was truly a tough job for the Realm King. Jian Wushuang shook his head with a sigh, finished his last sip of tea, and stood up. Standing by the shore, he admired the spectacular scenery. This place is also a good spot for tribulation. I'll undergo my tribulation here. Buzz. The surrounding spacetime began to converge until it formed a small cave heaven and stopped. He stepped forward, entering the cave heaven directly. The void cave heaven was pitch black and empty. Finding it somewhat dull, he used his mind to create light. The ground rose up accordingly. Mountains stretched to the horizon. At the end was an endless sea. All kinds of plants and living creatures appeared. This was his current mastery over spacetime. He had reached a high level of proficiency. Compared to the Realm King, he was not far off. The spacetime lord he once envisioned was probably at this level. Buzz. Sitting cross-legged on the mountain ridge, his mind entered his origin source starry sky. 9 perfect origin source universes shone brightly. This was his foundation. The threshold for the 8th tribulation was 9 origin source universes. To undergo the 9th tribulation, he might need a spacetime river. Divine tribulation. The final tribulation, once successful, would make him a universe god. At that time, what level did he want to reach? Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, stopping his thoughts. Adjusting his mindset, countless treasures to supplement divine power and origin source floated before him, ready for his selection. While selecting treasures, the 8th divine body tribulation began. He had long been accustomed to the relentless grinding and tempering. Divine power was crushed from millions down to 10,000, then replenished from 10,000 back to millions, over and over again. His divine power, initially golden, transformed once more. This time it neared the muddy color of spacetime. This indicated his divine power had reached the spacetime level. Gold was the universe. The muddy color was the spacetime level. Starry sky? Jian Wushuang thought of the power of the starry sky, which was blue. In his hesitation, he performed the super-eternal ancient transformation. The perfect super-eternal ancient transformation had stabilized. His pure divine power doubled. From 10 million, his divine power surged to 20 million. As the tribulation descended again, the muddy power vanished. The blue power followed. Buzz. The starry sky divine power fully embedded in his body. His basic divine power went from 10 million to 15 million. Maintaining the lowest state of super-ancient transformation, his hair and aura were blue. This meant his divine power would now always be the starry sky divine power. Super-eternal ancient transformation. Jian Wushuang roared, "Aha!" With a loud boom, a powerful wave of divine power erupted in the dim starry sky. His divine power surged directly to around 30 million. It was much easier than before, and he felt he hadn't reached his limit yet. His aura could still rise, reminiscent of Broly's infinite growth. His divine power stabilized at around 35 million. Using origin source amplification, despite the current high strength of his divine power reducing the amplification's effectiveness, he could still easily reach around 50 million. This was without undergoing the supreme tribulation, and he was already this strong. If the Realm King knew, he would be reassured. Metal beings? Shilu? They were no problem. Even cuter, while Jian Wushuang at the 8th tribulation might not be a match, at the 9th tribulation, he had confidence in a battle. Supreme tribulation. Jian Wushuang looked up at the turbulent dragon in the starry sky. The test of the supreme tribulation had just begun. However, this time he would succeed. Qixin had fallen at the 8th tribulation, but he would not. Buzz! The tribulation of his divine body had cost him 10,000 eons. The supreme tribulation, on the other hand, consumed only a few eons. He completely slayed the dragon and stabilized his origin source. 8th tribulation. On this day, Jian Wushuang reached the 8th tribulation, just one tribulation short of the universe master's limit. If not for the unique nature of the tribulation with his current divine power, he could have directly passed the divine tribulation. After stabilizing his realm, Jian Wushuang began to accumulate his basic divine power. This tribulation had inexplicably increased his divine power by 5 million. And it was starry sky divine power. Indeed, it brought him quite a surprise. But with surprises came shocks. He suddenly discovered that his divine power could not be increased any further. Or rather, the treasures given by the Realm King could no longer be used. This panicked him. He quickly sent a message to the Realm King. He thought something had gone wrong during his tribulation. The Realm King was also startled when he heard this. After hearing Jian Wushuang's explanation, he understood. Ahem, Jian Wushuang, your current divine power is Starry Sky divine power. Naturally, you need to use the power of the Starry Sky to replenish your divine power. Enhancing your divine power also requires Starry Sky treasures. The origin source may not be divided, but divine power is different. You cannot treat them the same way. Jian Wushuang then realized where the problem was. Couldn't be said that he lacked knowledge. He had mastered the Starry Sky origin source early on, and replenishing the origin source was not so particular. However, now replenishing Starry Sky divine power required Starry Sky treasures. The treasures given by the Realm King were wasted. Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang felt a pang of heartache. The Realm King, on the other hand, cut off communication because Starry Sky treasures were very special and could not enter the northern spacetime. Even on the Realm King continent, they were top-notch treasures which he did not possess. He could only leave Jian Wushuang to find a solution on his own. Basic divine power is only 15 million. Jian Wushuang shook his head. The gap was still significant. After passing the 8th tribulation, the tribulation armor could increase basic divine power by 5 million. It was an unexpected surprise. This was refined from the Skysight heavenly chessboard at that time. He kept the tribulation armor for himself and gave the Sky Eye to Hu Qing. That thing was really not suitable for him. Originally, he thought the main benefit was given to Hu Qing, but he didn't expect the tribulation armor to give him quite a few surprises as well. An increase of 5 million base divine power, which in the outside world, was absolutely comparable to a miracle. 20 million base divine power, the limit of the 8th tribulation realm, and the threshold of the 9th tribulation realm, it's almost there. He clenched his fist and suddenly boosted his aura, doubling his divine power. Now, without using the origin source's boost, his divine power was already at 40 million. If he used the origin source dojo's boost, he could easily surpass 50 million. He had already reached a demigod state. It was also time to leave the northern spacetime. Swish! He stepped out of the cave world he had built, tore the space casually, and returned the spacetime to its original state. It's time to say goodbye to Qixin Temple. He had been gone for over 100,000 eras. The headquarters of Qixin Temple in the upper-tier spacetime should have stabilized by now. Just as he stepped out, he received a transmission from Babata. The structure of the upper-tier spacetime had undergone significant changes. He originally thought that Hu Qing's crossing of the ninth tribulation would be very slow. Unexpectedly, a few days ago, he had also come out of seclusion. He became a ninth tribulation universe master and transformed the former Duanya spacetime into the eternal realm. It was named Fallen Spacetime, also called the Fallen Eternal Realm, in memory of the powerful beings who had fallen in the lower-tier spacetime back then. Thus, the present Qixin Temple was born. The middle and lower-tier spacetimes were completely unified. Zhenling stationed in the lower-tier spacetime, continuously sending geniuses to the middle-tier spacetime. As long as one became a universe master, they could go to the middle-tier spacetime. Upon reaching the middle-tier spacetime, they were handed over to Wuxia. After reaching the sixth tribulation realm, they could then proceed to the upper-tier Qixin Temple. As a result, in the over 100,000 eras, the development speed of Qixin Temple had crushed the three great eternal realms. Now it was considered the number one force, because Hu Qing was still in the northern spacetime, coupled with the foundation of Qixin Temple being elevated. In the entire northern spacetime, the number one force was Qixin Temple. It was once again glorious. He made it. Jian Wushuang stepped out and had already reached the outside of the former Duanya spacetime, now the fallen spacetime. He restrained his aura and did not notify anyone, wanting only to quietly observe the current Qixin Temple. Universe masters were everywhere. Disciples were trained not only in the middle and lower-tier spacetimes but also in the upper tier, though the number was very few. Only elites were accepted. Inside the fallen spacetime, Qixin Temple was still just a symbol. Most of it was still those sect forces. There were as many as 10,000 sections. Among them was a sect that evoked Jian Wushuang's thoughts. Jian Pavilion, revering the sword. It only recruited super geniuses of the ultimate sword Dao. It was rumored to have mastered the strongest sword path in the entire northern spacetime. Over the years, even the super families within the three great eternal realms had used their connections to send their descendants here. All of this started from the time when Jian Wushuang killed three ninth tribulation realm beings with one sword. It was during that battle that Jian Wushuang's name was forever etched into the hearts of the strong in the northern spacetime. And the master of Jian Pavilion was his personal disciple, Shun Jian. Now, Shun Jian, who was already a top 8th tribulation realm powerhouse, had gone far on the path of the sword. He had completely mastered the spacetime sword. As for the starry sky sword, it would depend on his own fate. But even mastering the spacetime sword had made him immensely famous. Seeing his former disciple able to carry forward his legacy made Jian Wushuang very pleased. He only paused for a moment, observing briefly, and then flew towards Qixin Temple. The things left behind did not need his worry. If he went, it would instead make things awkward. He hoped that someday, there would be a successor of his sword path who could fight alongside him. Fallen Spacetime, at the upper headquarters of Qixin Temple. This place was personally overseen by Hu Qing. Of course, many strong individuals also had their true selves stationed here. Zhenling's true self was in the lower tier, but he also had an avatar training here. Most of the strong individuals stationed in the middle-tier spacetimes were avatars, with their true selves in the upper headquarters. After all, this was the eternal realm, a more stable environment. Moreover, Qixin Temple was now the leader among the four major eternal forces. Staying in the upper tier offered more benefits as well. Jian Wushuang entered Qixin Temple alone. The internal space was similar to the lower tier but significantly larger. The four great secret realms remained the core. Each secret realm was of spacetime level. Qixin Temple had developed countless times stronger than before. Recalling the early days of Qixin Temple, it didn't even have a single tribulation level. But now, universe masters of the 8th tribulation level were everywhere. There was even a 9th tribulation level overseeing the place. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang floated in the void and stepped into the heaven realm. The core of the upper-tier Qixin Temple was still the heaven realm. Here, countless mountain halls stood. Hu Qing and Wuxia were among them. With a light step, he instantly arrived in front of the mountain hall. Swish! As soon as he entered Qixin Temple, Hu Qing sensed his presence. Brother Wushuang, congratulations. Hu Qing said with a faint smile, clearly celebrating Jian Wushuang's successful passage of the 8th tribulation. Jian Wushuang felt a bit embarrassed hearing this. He had only just passed the 8th tribulation, while his disciples were already at the 8th tribulation level. As their master, he had just crossed the 8th tribulation, which made him feel slightly awkward. Hu Qing, on the other hand, had retreated for several tens of thousands of eras and emerged having passed the 9th tribulation. He had become a supreme power in the universe. Just by sensing Hu Qing's aura, Jian Wushuang could tell that his divine power had reached a demigod level. It was not weaker than his own, possibly even stronger. Since entering Qixin Temple, it seemed only Hu Qing could keep up with him, sometimes even surpass him. The others lagged far behind. Wuxia and the others' divine power was average. Although they had reached the threshold for the 9th tribulation, passing it in one go was still uncertain. They were all waiting to venture to the Realm King continent with him. After all, resources in the northern spacetime were limited. They still needed to explore beyond. Congratulations to you instead. We haven't seen each other for years, and you're already at the 9th tribulation. Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly, marveling at Hu Qing's rapid progress. Both his realm and divine power had advanced rapidly. Hu Qing remained as humble as ever, saying, "It took millions of eras for me to advance from the extreme of the 8th tribulation to the 9th tribulation. Compared to others, I've been quite slow." Others? Jian Wushuang was curious. Could there be someone who progressed even faster? Just as he was about to ask, he sensed 2 auras rising to the sky, arriving in an instant. A divine Wood King and Wuxia. Both had also reached the 9th tribulation. But when he had just arrived, he didn't notice this. In just tens of thousands of eras, he didn't expect anyone else to reach the 9th tribulation. Looking at it this way, he was the one falling behind. He was still at the 8th tribulation. "Ha, Brother Wushuang. It's been many years, and you're still as dashing as ever." At this moment, Divine Wood King was in high spirits, because he not only possessed the aura of a 9th tribulation, but also had a 9th tribulation level Mayun Vine. His combat power was not inferior to a 9th tribulation expert. Suddenly, with 2 more 9th tribulation experts, Jian Wushuang was quite surprised. He couldn't help but speculate in his heart, wondering if the other party had secretly consumed some treasure, as they had all advanced so quickly. Wuxia took a deep breath, patted Jian Wushuang's shoulder, and slowly explained, "Wushuang, don't doubt yourself. The reason Divine Wood King and I were able to successfully break through to the 9th tribulation is because the Realm King took us to a place where there is a treasure that can make divine power boil. Do you remember the disciple of Gu Qianluo who obtained a wisp of power in the abyss?" "I remember. Didn't they say it was a power from the starry sky?" Jian Wushuang vaguely recalled something. Yes and no. That power did not come from the starry sky but was born in a super-secret realm within the Realm King continent. That secret realm is a rare starry sky secret realm. There are fewer than 10 such realms on the entire Realm King continent, and it was moved here from the starry sky. A super-powerful being, a universe god, once sat in meditation there, and that power came from this being. This time, it was truly thanks to the Realm King. He helped us obtain several spots. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so smooth, Divine Wood King said, clenching his fist in excitement, still feeling like he was dreaming. The second time he crossed the 9th tribulation, he hadn't expected it to go so smoothly. Jian Wushuang, however, caught the implication in their words. It wasn't just the 2 of them. Were there others? How could such a good opportunity not fall to him? He had painstakingly crossed the 8th tribulation and couldn't even find a single starry sky treasure. The Realm King just turned around and gave them such a great chance. He, the greatest contributor, seemed like a mere ornament. However, even if he had gone, he wouldn't have been able to directly cross the 9th tribulation. He did want to know how many people had gone this time. Their increased strength would benefit him too. In difficult times, he wouldn't be the only one facing the challenges. Who else reached the 9th tribulation? Hu Qing, Divine Wood King, and Wuxia. 3 more newly advanced 9th tribulations. Including Tianzong and the others, there were already 6. As for the 8th tribulation, there were too many to count. In the future, more 9th tribulation experts would emerge. Eventually, a universe god would be born, and by then, the northern spacetime would truly reach its peak. There's one more person you know. Divinewood King looked at him with a slight smile and said, "It's Wu Li. I've heard him talk a lot about your past." Wu Li. Jian Wushuang also smiled. He hadn't expected it to be this guy. He thought that after Wu Li had latched onto Danbao, he had forgotten about him. It had been so many years, and he had only come to see him once. But he couldn't blame Wu Li. He had been too busy, always in seclusion. He had just come out of seclusion not long ago and then went back to cross the tribulation again. He hadn't expected that when he came out, everyone had surpassed him, becoming 9th tribulation experts. It indeed had become quite lively. "Come on, let's go inside and talk." Wuxia finally remembered that they were still standing outside the main hall and hurriedly pulled Jian Wushuang inside. They hadn't been 9th tribulation experts for long and had just stabilized their realms. They were planning a trip to the Realm King continent. This coincided with what Jian Wushuang had in mind. Realm King continent. Only Jian Wushuang had never been there. The others had visited several times. Especially Wuxia, who had frequently traveled to the Realm King continent over the years. Although the place he went to was just a microcosm of the Realm King, his knowledge in this aspect far surpassed theirs. "Wushuang, since you haven't been to the Realm King continent, let me explain some of its layout to you." Wuxia slightly raised his head, paused, and then began to speak. The Realm King continent, as the name implies, is a continent, but don't underestimate it. Its space is larger than the combined 4 great spacetimes, and the number of experts is comparable to that of a world in the starry sky. The number of universe gods is numerous, and even the gods of various spacetimes are very low-key on the Realm King continent. Generally, they don't manage affairs, and universe gods are the most powerful. You can ask Wu Li about this. He once roamed the Realm God continent under the name Danbao and almost got himself killed. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang gasped and nodded silently. Wu Li was indeed capable of such things. "This time we are going to the Realm God continent, which belongs to a great world outside the Realm King universe. It's not actually a secret realm but a territory occupied by a demigod powerhouse, named Zilong Mountain. The spatial secret realm that the Realm King took us to back then is right next to Zilong Mountain. We'll first explore Zilong Mountain, make a name for ourselves, and then head to that starry sky secret realm." Wuxia had already planned everything, just waiting to set off. The plan sounded good. They had already explored that starry sky secret realm before, but the treasures they obtained were minimal, almost pitiful compared to those strong ones from the Realm God continent. So Wuxia and the others wanted to go again. Hu Qing had never been there, and neither had Jian Wushuang. There was no reason not to go. "No problem." Divinewood King was the first to agree. Hu Qing also nodded, having nowhere better to go. Following Wuxia for a bit of adventure seemed like a good idea. However, Jian Wushuang had something on his mind. Before leaving, he needed to collect the beast god soldiers. He had already mentioned this to the Realm King a long time ago, but there had been no news. Then there was the matter of his enemies on the Realm God continent. The threat of Xilu needed to be eliminated quickly. Xilu had been growing rapidly, reaching such a level in the northern spacetime, and with Zamasu's help on the Realm God continent, his divine power might reach the demigod level. This had to be dealt with sooner rather than later. After expressing his concerns, Wuxia, who seemed to have been prepared, said, "Brother Wushuang, this is not just your problem. I already had Danbao ask a friend about it. The beast god soldiers you are looking for are conveniently located near Zilong Mountain. We can help you find them this time. As for Xilu and any other metal lifeforms, you can rest assured. Let them come. I'll kill each one that comes." Wuxia was very confident in his divine power. Having reached the 9th tribulation, his basic divine power had increased to 30 million. With the Realm King Fist, his peak divine power could break 40 million. He indeed had the right to be arrogant. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang had no further objections. "Since no one has any objections, we will set off in 3 days. Say your goodbyes and pack up. We will gather here in 3 days. All right, everyone nodded. They dispersed. Although Divine Wood King was the guardian leader of the ancient moon sect, he had always stayed in the Qishan temple. This time, before leaving, he had to go back once. He had not turned ancient moon spacetime into an eternal realm because his ancient Wood sect no longer existed. Although he had re-established the ancient Wood sect back then, it was destroyed again in later conflicts. Helplessly, he took the remnants and joined the ancient moon sect, but he never felt a sense of belonging. If it weren't for entering the Realm King continent, he would have directly joined Qishan Temple. However, now that he had reached the 9th tribulation, his vision should be broader. There was no need to fixate on the limited land of the northern spacetime. It was time to explore a larger world. He had been silent for so many years, not because of the prosperity of the northern spacetime. It was for the new chapter of the Realm King continent. Wuxia was the same. Ever since Qishan Temple reached its peak, he had not intervened in its development. He spent his days in seclusion, and this time he was just bidding farewell before leaving. In this regard, it was similar to Hu Qing and Jian Wushuang. However, Jian Wushuang had one more thing to do. That was to discuss the matter of the beast god weapon with Shang and Luo. With a thought, he discovered that the two were not in Qishan Temple but were exploring a secret realm in the ancient moon spacetime. Shang and Luo were also quite powerful, though still far from the 9th tribulation. Reaching the 8th tribulation over the years was already quite impressive. This indirectly proved that Jinling had a good eye. Even without the help of the Realm King, given enough time, Shang reaching the 7th tribulation wouldn't have been an issue. With later opportunities, he achieved the 8th tribulation. As for the 9th tribulation, it depended on personal fortune. Jinling could no longer help any of them. Now, guarding the old site of Qishan Temple, it was heard that he had created a continent similar to the one in Moro spacetime and was embarking on a new journey. They all had their own paths, just like Shang and Luo, who were exploring a secret realm. Swish! Jian Wushuang casually tore through the spacetime and stepped into the ancient moon spacetime. With one glance, he pierced through that secret realm of spacetime. Without any hindrance, he strolled into the most dangerous secret realm of the ancient moon spacetime. Before entering, he greeted Shang. However, he didn't directly mention the matter of the beast god weapon. After undergoing the tribulation this time, he had mastered the starry sky divine power and left behind many treasures, enough to exchange for the beast god weapon in Shang's hands. But forcing a friend was ultimately inappropriate. He still had to inquire indirectly. Originally, this matter was for Jinling to handle, but now he was pretending to be oblivious and not addressing it. He had left the difficult task to him. Swish! You're here! Shang wiped the bloodstains from his body and smiled when he saw Jian Wushuang. Luo beside him did the same. The two were well-known Dao companions in the northern spacetime, always together with similar strength and background. This kind of celestial couple, even if they didn't possess Jian Wushuang's powerful divine power, were a rare and widely praised pair. Long time no see. Jian Wushuang nodded politely. His relationship with Shang wasn't particularly close. They hadn't adventured together, and their meetings were always polite. Although there was some distance, they were still considered allies. The three of them met, first reminiscing about old times and discussing the changes at Qishan Temple over the years. However, they did not delve into a long conversation. Soon, Shang brought up the main topic. I heard that Wuxia is already packing his belongings. It seems you are preparing to leave the northern spacetime. Yes, in 3 days. Jian Wushuang nodded, his tone devoid of excitement and tinged with sadness instead. Seeing this, Luo smiled faintly and said, Wushuang, you shouldn't be one to hesitate. A true man, born between heaven and earth, should not linger in places of comfort. Exactly, cheer up. You represent not just yourself, but the entire northern spacetime. Shang wiped the dirt off his hands and took out a mustard seed. Since you are leaving, take all your things. He said this while throwing the mustard seed to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised, catching the mustard seed with a blank expression. Inside, 2 massive beast god weapons were floating. Zhongliang polearm and Fengyu spear. Before he could speak, Shang had already given him the two treasures. This made Jian Wushuang feel a bit awkward. Just as he was about to explain, Shang interrupted him. No need to say anything. It wasn't Lord Jinling or anyone else who mentioned anything. Your quest to find beast god weapons was impossible to hide from us. If it were before, I might have been reluctant, but now I have no use for beast god weapons. Not long ago, my divine power reached 15 million, and the Realm King bestowed upon us a pair of even more perfect semi-divine artifacts. These beast god weapons are no longer needed. I was going to leave them at Qixin Temple, but considering Lord Zhenling's nature. Jian Wushuang's eyes reddened, and he couldn't help but laugh at the last sentence. With Zhenling's personality, he would probably extort him a bit before letting it go. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, took out a mustard seed, and was about to hand it over when Shang turned his head, facing away from him, and said, "Don't bother. I won't take it. I don't lack treasures. I came here just to stretch my muscles. Hurry up and go, your disciples probably want to see you one last time. It's been many years since they've seen you. Stop chatting with this old friend." Jian Wushuang turned his head and smiled, feeling relieved in his heart. He had oversimplified their bond and underestimated the pride of strong individuals. These treasures were precious, but dignified warriors would not accept them. They wanted to rely on their own strength to obtain everything. Swish! The void cracked open, and with a gentle wave of his hand, Jian Wushuang's figure slowly disappeared. Only then did Shang turn back, smiling. "Don't slack off. I will soon bring Qixin Temple into the Realm King continent. I'll be waiting for you." The beast god weapons, the 7th Zhongliang polearm, and the 8th Fengyu spear, returned to their places. Jian Wushuang wore them completely, and the origin source of the beast gods began to fuse automatically. At this moment, he looked like a true beast god. Wearing the vermilion bird crown on his head, the beast god's eye on his brow shone brightly. That was the eye of the candle dragon. His wings spread open behind him, fluttering with the Qilin cloak. He wore azure dragon boots on his feet. Gently putting on the Taotai mask, an ancient beast god's aura burst forth. The power of the beast god. Ha! He clenched his fist and exploded with divine power. His base divine power of 20 million surged directly to 30 million. It increased by a full 10 million. This was already the limit of the beast god's origin source. There was no way around it. He was still missing one piece, and without forging the beast god weapons into a unified whole, the effect was minimal. Additionally, they could not stack. Once he used the super-eternal transformation, the beast god weapons might not be able to withstand such power and would shatter directly. No rush. Once I gather all 9 beast god weapons and find a universe god to help me forge them, then, at that time, the power of the beast god could be combined with the super-eternal ancient transformation, and he could seize the opportunity to create an even stronger super-eternal ancient transformation. But those were matters for the future. In the coming time, he bid farewell to everyone. Before leaving the ancient moon spacetime, he left some treasures for Queen Yunji and Empress Fengqin. The origin of the super-eternal ancient transformation could not be separated from these two individuals. Queen Yunji had given him guidance. Without that guidance, he would have taken many detours. Empress Fengqin, however, gave him immense pressure. She left him alone at the bottom of the Roman River to face so many wild beasts. In the end, he erupted using the super-eternal ancient transformation. There was actually another person to thank. But unfortunately, that person was no longer around. He simply lit 3 sticks of incense, placing them in the Roman River, carried by a small wooden boat. Eternally enduring. After handling these matters, he went to see his 3 disciples. Through their introduction, he learned about some of the prodigies in the Jian Pavilion. Facing those juniors, he could only say, "The future holds great promise." Then he drifted away. Even those simple 5 words made those young ones extremely excited, giving them motivation to cultivate. He spent nearly all 3 days saying his farewells. In the last hour, he went to see Jinling. This initial guide, considered a mentor, Although there was prejudice in the early stages as he couldn't stand him, ultimately, through his own efforts, he made the other party acknowledge his excellence. Lord Zhenling. Zhenling here was just an avatar. He was fishing on a small boat in the middle of a spiritual lake. Jian Wushuang's voice was soft as he slowly sat by the edge of the boat, waiting for Zhenling to speak. The two remained silent for a long time. It was unclear whether Zhenling was really fishing or simply didn't know what to say. He also knew that Jian Wushuang was leaving. He was leaving along with his proudest disciple, Hu Qing, and Qixin's only descendant, Wu Zua. These three were the closest people to him. This farewell was far different from before. Once they left, it could be for millions of years or several reincarnations. Have you packed everything? Yes, it's all packed. Good. With those words, they fell into silence again. Jian Wushuang sat quietly by the boat's edge, not speaking. The hour passed quickly. Before long, Hu Qing and Wu Zua arrived. Jian Wushuang then understood that they were waiting for everyone to arrive before speaking. But even after Hu Qing and Wu Zua boarded the boat, there was still no intention to speak. They waited. The appointed time arrived. It's time to go, Wu Zua whispered. Upon hearing this, Zhenling only blinked, smiling lightly. Be careful over there. No one will be there to back you up anymore. Absolutely. The three stood up together, disappearing from the lake surface. Zhenling, left alone, had reddened eyes and sighed softly. Alas, they couldn't stay. And they don't even keep this old man company. Sigh. With a long sigh, the scene shattered. Outside Qixin Temple, countless people saw them off. Jian Wushuang, Hu Qing, Wu Zua, and Divine Wood King. They all looked back once before resolutely crushing the Realm King order. Space-time trembled. Under everyone's gaze, Jian Wushuang and the others completely vanished from the northern space-time. The people of Qixin Temple also dispersed, starting their own paths. In the northern space-time, in the boundless expanse, stars dotted the sky. To the weak, it seemed like endless danger. But to Jian Wushuang and the others, it was a scene of peace. Yet this time, the Realm King continent looking up at the starry sky posed infinite challenges for them. Swoosh! The four figures paused, feeling only a moment of discomfort before arriving at a familiar hall. Immortal Temple! Jian Wushuang exclaimed in surprise. The transmission point is here. Ha ha! Brother Wushuang, you finally arrived. As soon as they landed, a familiar voice rang out. It was Wu Li. He had followed Dan Bao to the Realm King continent back then and was doing really well. Compared to Divine Wood King who stayed behind, he was indeed superior. He had already reached the 9th tribulation level. With a thought, in the Immortal Temple there were two familiar auras. They also walked out of the hall, coming outside. Brother Wushuang, Jian Wushuang, Dan Bao and Elder Blue also approached. Having not seen each other for a long time, they were particularly excited to meet again. He pulled a few people together into the hall to taste the fine wine and delicacies of the divine domain. Then he began to discuss the plan for this time. 5 people. Himself, Hu Qing, Wu Zua, Divine Wood King, and Wu Li. They were going on an adventure together. The region where the Immortal Temple was located was called the Star Field of the Gods. It was once the core of the Realm King continent. Unfortunately, it had now declined because the space-time god only mastered one path. Couldn't compare to the universe gods born from cultivation. So, the Star Field of the Gods naturally fell into decline. Now, there were almost no people there and no attractive secret realms. Nowadays, the core of the Realm King continent belonged to the divine domain. There were many universe gods there, a gathering place for the strong. Bruce, relying on the gift of the Star Field of the Gods, had already cultivated his divine power to the demigod level. Although his realm was average, he had 45 million divine power, and he occasionally ventured out, gaining more experience than Wu Zua. He then told them about some recent events on the Realm King continent. Divine domain. Jian Wushuang, upon hearing this, felt it was too dangerous. He wasn't suitable to go there now. The current opportunities were enough for him to strive for. Bruce said warmly, I only heard about this recently. It seems that an extraordinary being has descended upon the divine domain. Recently, it has been quite chaotic there, and even universe gods have fallen. What? Wuxia was startled. Even universe gods had fallen. That definitely meant they couldn't go to the divine domain. The confidence that came with just becoming a ninth tribulation quickly shattered. If they went, they would be finished by any random wave. Just like Jinling said, this time no one would back them up. The connections of the Realm King wouldn't be enough. They struggled to protect them even in the northern spacetime, let alone on the Realm King continent. Seeing Wuxia like this, Jian Wushuang swallowed back the words he was about to say. The strong one who had just descended to the divine domain was likely cuter, who left the northern spacetime. If Wuxia knew this, he might be scared and go back immediately. Fortunately, Qud had just returned and didn't have time to deal with them. By the time Qud was settled, they would almost have the ability to protect themselves. After gaining a general understanding of the Realm King continent, Jian Wushuang was eager to head to Zilong Mountain for an adventure. The time given to them was not much. As soon as he descended, he felt a strong causality coming towards him. It might be the metallic life form. He could only sense a trace of causality and couldn't perceive the opponent's divine power. The strength wouldn't be weak. As for Shilu, he couldn't sense him at all. Either the causality was cut off or he was much stronger than him. No matter which possibility, he couldn't be careless. Leaving now? Danbao was a bit surprised, not expecting Jian Wushuang to leave so soon. He quickly took out a jade slip and handed it over. This is a map I asked a prophetic friend to help you get. According to the route on it, you should be able to find the last piece of the beast god's weapon. Jian Wushuang was stunned after hearing this. Prophet. This was similar to Hu Qing's deduction. The Realm King continent was indeed full of wonders. Danbao nodded and said, by the way, that friend of the prophet is also very curious about the beast god weapon, and he is a divine craftsman. Even universe masters seek him out for forging. If you gather all the beast god weapons, you can come back to find me, and I will take you to the prophet to help you forge the beast god weapon. Having just arrived, Jian Wushuang heard a piece of great news, and his furrowed brows relaxed. Great kindness requires no thanks. The prophet should be setting off for Zilong Mountain soon. After waving goodbye, the five of them leapt down from the Immortal Temple together. The divine hall floated high in the air. Below it was the continent. After leaping down together, only Jian Wushuang felt somewhat uncomfortable. Because the realm god continent was too stable, the gravity was very strong. Ordinary life forms from spacetime could not reproduce here. Only the mortals of the realm god continent could survive. Moreover, the space here was so stable that it was difficult to tear apart. Traveling required flying. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang had the pyramid. Babata! With a command. The five of them had not yet landed. They entered the pyramid. Swoosh! In the resting cabin, Wuli found a seat and lay down directly, comfortably saying, it's still better lying down. Flying in the realm god continent is too tiring. That's because you're too lazy. Wuxia rolled his eyes and frowned, saying, seriously, can you handle it? Don't mess up when we enter Zilong Mountain. Don't worry. Wu Li was very confident. This time, their mission at Zilong Mountain had two objectives. The first was to search for the beast god weapon for Jian Wushuang. The second was to follow the young master of Zilong Mountain to a spacetime gorge to find another treasure. However, they didn't know what that treasure was. Wu Li had spearheaded this matter. The reward was substantial. The requirement was for as many experts with 30 million divine power as possible. Beast god weapon. Jian Wushuang stood aside, holding a jade slip to examine the map. At the same time, he had Wu Li inform Babata of the location. Zilong Mountain. The location was the same. The marked location inside the jade slip was Zilong Mountain. The task Wu Li accepted was also to meet at Zilong Mountain. There might be no delay. To reach Zilong Mountain, using cosmic level speed, it would take 12,000 years? Jian Wushuang was stunned by Babata's report. Cosmic level speed was 1/3 of his full speed. That meant it would take him 4,000 years of full-speed flight to reach Zilong Mountain. The location of the Immortal Divine Hall was at the edge of the star field of the gods. Speaking of which, Zilong Mountain was actually within the sphere of influence of the Immortal Temple. Unfortunately, Danbao's strength was not enough and he was too easygoing. The demigod of Zilong Mountain had been occupying it and had no intention of moving away. This time, Wu Li's task was still to help the son of the Lord of Zilong Mountain to find a treasure. It was said to be a rite of passage trial. Even though it was called a rite of passage, the time spent cultivating might be much longer than theirs. It was just that he had a good father. Having just become a 9th Tribulation Universe Master, he could head to the Spacetime Gorge. His strength would not be inferior to theirs. The demigod on Zilong Mountain was no ordinary being, and his direct descendants would not be weak either. They had been able to dominate the star field of the gods for so many years. Without some strength, they would have long been chased away by Elder Blue. Brother Wushuang, regarding the matter of the beast god weapon, don't worry. I am sworn brothers with that young master. This time I'm purely going to help out. After it's done, I'll ask for a beast god weapon. That shouldn't be too much to ask, right? Wu Li said simply from the side. Jian Wushuang shook his head with a bitter smile. If only it were that simple. If it were so straightforward, he wouldn't mind setting up a few tables and forming a brotherly bond with the other party. But would it really go that smoothly? 12,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Through the pyramid they saw Zilong Mountain. The grand mountain pierced through the clouds. Below was an ancient city full of a wild aura. Extremely impressive. It was the stronghold of a demigod expert. Such an exaggerated place made Jian Wushuang feel it was a bit absurd. Logically, his strength should be about the same as the other parties. Could he also secure some territory? After some thought, he decided against it. He still had enemies hunting him. Getting territory would just be a burden. If things went south, he could leave without any attachments. We're here. Head to the Qingshui Hall in the eastern city. Young Master Hong Long is waiting for us there. Wu Li controlled the pyramid, entering the ancient city, casually tossing out several mixed yuan stones and a token. The guards who had intended to stop the pyramid saw the token of Zilong Mountain and retreated. Wu Li was quite proud of this and said with a faint smile, "This time, thanks to this pyramid, I usually take millions of years to fly here. This time, it only took 10,000 years." Jian Wushuang sighed at this. He originally thought the other's vision should be broader, having stayed on the realm god continent. But it seemed things were the same as before. This was nothing. Flying at full speed, utilizing the origin source, he probably wouldn't need 1,000 years. Even without the origin source, he could reach Zilong Mountain in 4,000 years. There was no other way. The realm god continent was too vast, and the space was too stable to tear through. Essentially, their speed was slowed down. Zilong Mountain belonged to the star field of the gods. Beyond Zilong Mountain was another star field. The star fields on the realm god continent were countless. However, many had been destroyed, and the surviving star fields were few. Around the star field of the gods, outside Zilong Mountain, lay a mostly ruined star field. Silver Blue Star Field. It was also the star field where Wuxia and others had gone to that starry sky secret realm. In that starry sky secret realm, the fallen universe god was once the emperor of the Silver Blue Star Field. After his fall, the star field declined, but there were still several universe gods. Each star field had universe gods, just in varying numbers. The relatively weaker Silver Blue Star Field had only 4 universe gods, and their strength was just average among their peers. Yet, they were not figures Jian Wushuang and his group could provoke. Now, facing even a demigod, they had to be extremely cautious. There was no choice. Some demigods hid their strength deeply. The threshold for demigods was 40 million. That was the threshold in spacetime. The threshold on the realm god continent was 45 million. This was just the threshold. Demigods weren't necessarily just this strong. Just like how 1 million divine power was the threshold for the 7th Tribulation realm. No one would believe the other party only had 1 million divine power. There might be a heaven-defying existence with 50 or 60 million divine power. Some heaven-defying demigods even had hundreds of millions of divine power. Those were the truly super strong. However, the Lord of Zilong Mountain did not have that kind of strength. He should be about the same as Jian Wushuang at his peak. It was just hard to probe with mental power. Otherwise, he would have checked thoroughly. If their divine power was similar, he could definitely go and negotiate for a beast god weapon. If not strong enough, it would be better to obediently flatter Wu Li's sworn brother. Just arriving at the Realm King continent, it was best to remain low-key for now. Buzz. The pyramid-shaped object gradually shrank, passing through the city's restriction barrier and stopping above a serene hall. Clang. A metal plate slowly descended from the bottom of the pyramid. Led by Wu Li, 5 people slowly walked down from the metal plate. As soon as they landed, a voice echoed from within the hall. The tone was extremely polite, and a figure instantly walked out from the hall. Wu Li, you really kept me waiting. A handsome young man in a white robe stepped out of the hall and greeted them. As soon as the other party appeared, Jian Wushuang cautiously used his mind power to probe. Ordinary divine power around 30 million. Just after breaking through, he already had 30 million divine power. It was evident that the master of Xialong Mountain valued this son greatly, providing him with a large amount of resources. It should be known that the cherished treasures of these realm kings received similar treatment. Although the realm king had no physical form and his combat power was like air, he had connections and treasures. This was much stronger than a demigod. The status of a young master of Xialong Mountain, comparable to the disciples of a realm king, was already quite good. With a base divine power of 30 million, if his divine power secret techniques were strong enough, it wouldn't be a problem to burst to 38 million. Given his status, with some treasures, he could reach 40 million divine power. All 5 of them, including Jian Wushuang, had divine power above 40 million. Their base divine power, except for Jian Wushuang himself who only had 20 million, was at least 30 million, with Wu Li even reaching around 35 million. None of them were weaker than the other party. This allowed Jian Wushuang to breathe a sigh of relief. Their hidden divine power was stronger than the other parties, so they could handle any urgent situations that might arise. Wu Li, on the other hand, engaged in a dramatic reunion with the other party, playing out a long-lost brotherhood. The two embraced and sighed. Since our parting years ago, I have missed you dearly. This acting, compared to the past, had somewhat declined. Jian Wushuang mused silently. Under the surprised gazes of the others, Wu Li felt it was about time, so he released the other party and began to introduce Jian Wushuang and the others to the young master of Honglong. Come. These are all prodigies from the star field of the gods. If I'm not around in the future, just look for them. It's all the same. Wu Li boasted as if the star field of the gods was their home turf. Jian Wushuang smiled wryly to himself and could only nod. The young master of Honglong was also a straightforward person. He immediately waved and ordered the servants, "Go, summon Brother Xiangyang and Elder Zhuge, and tell them we have distinguished guests. Please." After instructing the servants, he immediately smiled and courteously invited everyone into the hall. From this, it was clear that the other party was not a spoiled brat. He valued friendships and connections. This exceeded Jian Wushuang's expectations, and he looked at Wu Li with newfound respect, grateful he hadn't found a troublesome friend. Entering the hall, they each took their seats. Jian Wushuang had the lowest apparent strength. Although the other party couldn't discern his realm, they could feel his divine power. There was no need for him to hide it. Concealing his realm was fine. He boldly revealed his 20 million divine power. Among them, he was the weakest, naturally taking the last seat, listening as Wu Li praised them from above. Young Master Honglong also politely toasted each of them, sharing many details about Xialong Mountain during the banquet. This helped Jian Wushuang understand that practitioners on the Realm King continent also faced significant pressure. Take young Master Honglong, for instance. He had 7 brothers. 4 of them had died young. Now only 2 elder brothers remained. He was the youngest. Both elder brothers were in the 9th tribulation. Their divine power was stronger than his. Who would inherit Xialong Mountain in the future was uncertain. His father, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain, was a powerful demigod and an ancient one at that. Currently, he was planning a major tribulation. The divine tribulation was no joke. When crossing the tribulation, it was earth-shattering, and there was no need to hide anything. But if he failed, he needed a successor. 3 sons, countless disciples. He had to choose one. For now, the disciples could wait. After all, not all the sons were dead yet. Moreover, the remaining 3 sons were all quite excellent. Especially the youngest, Hong Long. He had the shortest training time but considerable strength and had even received a special inheritance. He was the most likely to succeed Xiaolong Mountain, mainly because his personality was suitable. He could be accommodating. He made friends widely and was loyal and righteous. His father felt reassured about passing Xiaolong Mountain to his youngest son. So, he invested heavily in him. The young master of Honglong worked hard to live up to his father's expectations. This trial in the Spacetime Canyon could be considered the final test. Once he obtained that treasure, using it to train for millions of epochs, his divine power could reach the threshold of a demigod, allowing him to take over Xiaolong Mountain. Thus, the old lord could focus on crossing the tribulation. As they got to know each other, they chatted for less than a quarter of an hour before there was a commotion outside the hall. Soon, 2 figures walked in simultaneously. One was a young man, frivolous in demeanor, with handsome features that rivaled the young master of Honglong but fell short compared to Jian Wushuang. The other person, who appeared elderly with numerous wrinkles crisscrossing his face, should be Elder Zhuge mentioned by young master Honglong. Just by looking at his face, one could tell that this Elder Zhuge had experienced a lot. His basic divine power alone was around 36 million. At his peak battle strength, he might have reached the threshold of a demigod. He was definitely not an ordinary strong practitioner. Come, let me introduce you all. This is my guest from Zilong Mountain, Brother Xiangyang. Though he is young, his peak divine power exceeds 40 million. And this is Elder Zhuge, who followed my father for many years. He should be in his years of seclusion, but due to the matter of the Spacetime Canyon, we still have to trouble this Elder Zhuge. Young Master Honglong introduced the 2 strong practitioners with great formality. However, Jian Wushuang could tell from his words that these 2 were not his people. Or rather, they were not people of young Master Honglong. Guest Elder Xiangyang merely smiled and cupped his hands towards them, showing respect as a guest to the host. But Elder Zhuge, after finding a place, only cupped his hands slightly towards young Master Honglong before sitting down casually and closing his eyes to rest. Although young Master Honglong felt a bit embarrassed about this, he did not blame him, as Elder Zhuge was an old servant. He changed the topic and started talking about the Spacetime Rift. Speaking of which, this Spacetime Rift was a treasure trove discovered by his father. Some treasures would drift inside. It opened once every 100,000 eras and would accumulate some treasures each time. However, when it opened, it was still there Zilong Mountain that went to search for them. Such lucrative opportunities did not fall to others. There were treasures but also dangers. Some demonic creatures fallen into spacetime would also enter the spacetime rift. He was quite powerful, almost reaching the demigod level. This time, he went to the spacetime rift because his father informed him that a remarkable treasure had floated in from the spacetime rift. It was considered a semi-divine artifact, and it was an auxiliary type of treasure. Obtaining this treasure would not only quickly make him a demigod but also nurture his divine body. If he failed, this matter would be handed over to his 2 brothers. So he had to succeed. For this, he even dug out an elder and a guest from his father's side. As for himself, he had a few confidants, specially arranged by his father to be by his side. They were all disciples of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Their peak divine power was around 40 million each, a total of 6 people. It could be considered a small squad to protect him. Originally, he planned to bring these people with him, but when he heard that Wu Li was bringing friends to join in the fun and gain some benefits, he readily agreed. Regarding the treasure in the spacetime rift, he only wanted that one item, and the rest he didn't care about. It was the first time Wu Li heard about the spacetime rift, and after listening, a trace of greed appeared in his eyes, though he hid it well. He turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang and the others, laughing. Then everyone, please accompany my brother on this trip. As for the treasure in the space-time rift, everyone wasn't very concerned. They just wanted to help the other party so that Jian Wushuang could ask for that beast god weapon. But after hearing about the origin of the space-time rift, they started communicating with each other, each becoming like a greedy wolf. The space-time rift opened once every 100,000 epochs, bringing in some floating treasures. So, how many treasures did the first discoverer of the space-time rift, the Lord of Xialong Mountain, obtain? The quantity was probably unimaginable. Moreover, since the Lord of Xialong Mountain took over this place, he had been very low-key, which was unlike his usual personality. He even gave up the right to his territory, fully entrusting it to his subordinates, and had been in seclusion. It was probably because he had obtained a large number of treasures and had no interest in managing any territory, focusing solely on rushing towards becoming a universe master. Their thoughts were similar, all driven by poverty, and upon hearing that Xialong Mountain was still a treasure trove, they all had evil thoughts. Forget it, we just arrived, and I think this young Master Hong Long looks good too, so let's not have any ideas about him. Jian Wushuang hurriedly stopped them, fearing they would go too far. Those treasures were indeed tempting. There might be a large number of starry sky treasures that could help him enhance his basic divine power and even treasures that could boost his origin source. He might even be able to face the 9th tribulation soon. But compared to the beast's divine weapon, he thought more long-term and steadier. The key point was that young Master Hong Long did not hide these secrets from them. It was clearly no longer a secret. There were probably many people with the same idea. There were still many demigod territories near Xialong Mountain. Even territories of universe masters, if they hadn't acted, it wouldn't be that simple for them to just come and take. Cough, cough. We should plan this out carefully. Let's get the beast's divine weapon first. Wu Li also paused, transmitting his voice to everyone. At the wine table, they happened to be talking about Jian Wushuang. Wu Li took the opportunity to give a slight reprimand. My little brother here, his strength isn't that great. He came this time just to broaden his horizons. Wu Li sat at the top, like an elder brother, which made Divine Wood King very unhappy. In the past, he would have pulled him down long ago. In terms of seniority, Divine Wood King was the elder brother. In terms of strength, it was Jian Wushuang and Hu Qing. At this moment, he could only endure. Jian Wushuang didn't mind. Back then, he was Wu Li's nephew, and even tracing back to the origin source, he reincarnated into the Wu family and should be calling Wu Li an ancestor. These were all just jokes. Taking this opportunity, Wu Li asked, by the way, Brother Hong Long, does that shop in Xialong City have any treasures containing starry sky power? I happen to need some this time. Then you're asking the right person. Brother Xiangyang is the owner of the largest shop in Xialong City. You should ask him. Jian Wushuang was delighted in his heart, not expecting Wu Li to remember what he had said. The first thing he needed was beast god weapons, and the second was treasures containing starry sky power. However, this statement caught the attention of Elder Zhuge. Elder Zhuge cast a cold glance at Wu Li. Wu Li's body froze at the sight. If the other party weren't an elder of Xialong Mountain, he would have dragged him out for a beating. Such arrogance and disrespect. When they reached the space-time rift and encountered terrifying monsters, he would have to calculate against the other party. The whole Xialong City is out of stock, Elder Zhuge said coldly. Just yesterday, they were bought out by a group of Star-Field bandits. Star-Field bandits? This was the first time Jian Wushuang and the others had heard of them. Wu Li, however, pretended to understand and asked, Star-Field bandits? They dare to appear in the star field of the gods. Have they gone far? I'll inform my martial uncle to wipe them out. Humph! Elder Zhuge sneered. They have 4 demigods. Can you wipe them out? Young Master Hong Long frowned, feeling that this elder was being somewhat excessive. He quickly changed the topic by bringing up the Starfield bandits. He took the opportunity to shift the conversation. Starfield bandits were a group of rogue cultivators drifting between various star fields, forming a super force. This force was generally scattered, but whenever they formed a group, they became extremely terrifying. They dared to steal and even rob from anywhere except the territory of the universe gods. Therefore, ordinary demigod territories were not just afraid of provoking them, they were afraid when they arrived. However, the Starfield bandits who came to Xiaolong Mountain seemed to have some sense, knowing that the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain was not to be trifled with, so they did not linger. They left after buying the treasures containing starry sky power from the shop. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang was not interested in the Starfield bandits but was very intrigued by the person who bought the treasures containing starry sky power. Buying so many at once. Either they needed treasures containing starry sky power, or they were cultivating some kind of starry sky secret technique. Or they had mastered starry sky divine power or starry sky origin source. He belonged to the latter group. Not only had he mastered starry sky divine power, but he also controlled starry sky power. Generally, those who mastered starry sky divine power were already rare. If this were true, then it could only be said that he was lucky this time. He had encountered a peer. Both of them had mastered starry sky divine power and needed treasures containing starry sky power to enhance their divine power. Jian Wushuang conveyed this information to everyone through voice transmission. He reminded them to be careful. This group of Starfield bandits might have a complicated purpose, coupled with the previous spacetime rift incident and his own suspicions. If it truly were someone who had mastered starry sky divine power, they might indeed dare to attack Xiaolong Mountain. The group chatted until it got dark. They also agreed on a time to depart the next morning. Originally wanting to take a walk around Xiaolong City, Jian Wushuang chose to stay indoors instead, preparing for the departure the next day. They stayed in the same grand hall. However, within the hall there was no one. Only a triangular pyramid. Phew! Upon entering this place, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. A temporal rift. Hu Qing, what do you think about this? Jian Wushuang threw the matter to Hu Qing. He spoke the least, but he certainly had his own ideas. They were not discussing how to seize Xiaolong Mountain but were instead discussing the origin of the temporal rift. Upon hearing this, Hu Qing expressed his opinion. This temporal rift should be somewhat similar to the abyss in the northern spacetime. Only the temporal rift here is more powerful. Divine Wood King asked, "What do you mean by that?" Everyone looked at Hu Qing. "Brother Wushuang, are you certain the beast god weapon is in Xiaolong Mountain?" "Certain, and it's most likely in the hands of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain." Jian Wushuang nodded. Although he dared not sense it directly, the prophet map given by Danbao marked Xiaolong Mountain. If it were in Xiaolong Mountain City, he would have discovered it long ago. If it were on Xiaolong Mountain, a treasure drifting from the northern spacetime would most likely be obtained by the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Upon hearing the definitive answer, Hu Qing provided his conclusion. It was simple. The beast god weapon likely drifted through the temporal rift and was obtained by the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. 100,000 epochs, a very brief period. Every 100,000 epochs, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain would plunder treasures. Opportunities rarely remained for future generations. This time it was a test for young Master Honglong. Moreover, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain was so certain there was a semi-divine weapon because he had visited the temporal rift. After finding no special treasures, he gave this opportunity to his son. Or perhaps there were special treasures, and he simply took them himself. Speaking of which, this treasure land made Hu Qing very tempted. Visiting once every 100,000 epochs was like harvesting crops. It could also be set to be harvested once every million epochs, or even 10 million epochs. Everything was decided by the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Occupying such a treasure land, there was indeed no need to struggle. It was like sitting in an infinitely growing treasure vault. If it were him, he wouldn't venture out either. Who knows, perhaps one day, a divine artifact might drift over from a spacetime rift. Such a high-level treasure land, yet it was occupied by a demigod. Shouldn't be. There was definitely a secret. If it was truly occupied by a demigod, it would probably be kept under wraps. Stop thinking about it. When I become a universe master, I'll bestow this treasure land upon you all. Wu Li laughed heartily, leaned back in his chair, and closed his eyes to rest. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and also closed his eyes. The next morning, as the first ray of sunlight fell, everyone was already packed and ready. The pyramid was also put away. Just as they stepped out of the hall, they saw that young Master Hong Long was already waiting. This time, the team originally consisted of 9 people. Young Master Hong Long, guest Elder Xiangyang, Elder Zhuge, and 6 guards. Now, with Jian Wushuang and his 4 companions, there were already 14 people. Each possessed divine power of 40 million. If they reached the northern spacetime, they could sweep through it. In the realm god continent, however, they seemed worthless. They had gathered so many strong individuals so easily. Let's go! With young Master Hong Long's command, everyone boarded a flying bird, soared into the sky, and left the Qingshui Hall. As they departed, a crow perched on a wooden building across the street let out a call and then flew away. As the treasured flying bird Bluebird just flew out of Xialong City, a message was transmitted to the outside world. A team of black-clad figures, hidden in the mountains not far from the space-time rift, received the message. Lion King, the crow has sent word. They've already set off. In the mountains, the leader, a man in golden armor, tore off his black cloak and grinned. Prepare to follow them. Aren't we waiting for the crow? A voice from the shadows sounded somewhat apprehensive. The golden-armored Lion King pulled the figure out of the darkness, revealing an extremely strange face with stitches at the corners of his mouth and bizarre patterns painted on his face. Shizhou, if you're scared, stay here. I'll leave a share of the treasure for you. The Lion King's cold gaze bore into the other, and after receiving no response for a long time, he sneered, "Then follow me closely, you freak." After casually tossing Shizhou aside, the Lion King continued to observe the edge of the spacetime rift with a special power. The darkness in the mountains lit up, revealing a teleportation array. Once activated, it could enter the spacetime rift. The chaotic spacetime within would conceal their entry. But Shizhou, the freak, was still very afraid. He knew how many strong individuals had fallen within the spacetime rift. There was even a demigod with divine power of 70 million. That's why no one dared to covet Xialong Mountain. The Lord of Xialong Mountain was more like a freak, having killed countless who had tried to spy on this place. Yet they still dared to come. Fortune favors the bold. Moreover, this time they were only after the treasures within the spacetime rift. However, the leading Lion King did not think so. He wanted the entire spacetime canyon. Zongjing, I'll enter soon. If what you gave me doesn't work, I'll make sure you pay. The Lion King sent a threatening message to the outside world. By a lake near Xialong Mountain, a nobleman in luxurious clothes disdainfully responded to the Lion King's message. Stop spouting nonsense. This time, I'm staking my life on it. This group was the same Star Field bandits who had previously come to Xialong City to procure items containing starry sky power. They were indeed after the spacetime rift, just as Jian Wushuang had guessed. Now they were here to seize it, and they had a plan to deal with the Lord of Xialong Mountain. Meanwhile, on Jian Wushuang's side, Xialong City was very close to the spacetime rift. It took only half a day to reach it. The Bluebird speed was similar to the secret realm speed of the pyramid. If it were the pyramid using cosmic level speed, it would take the time of 1 incense stick to reach. For Jian Wushuang, at full speed, it would only take a few breaths. For the Lord of Xialong Mountain, it would be an instant. That's why Xialong Mountain was chosen as the sex base. Only when it was nearby could they feel at ease. As for why they didn't make this place the sex base, that would be too exaggerated. The surroundings were desolate, not suitable nor appropriate. Too conspicuous would not be good either. Being able to reach it instantly was enough. No need to station there. The spacetime rift wouldn't disappear. If anyone dared to come, they would be killed. There was no getting past this checkpoint. We've arrived. Young Master Hong Long was the first to disembark from the bird, pointing to the large formation ahead. This is a large formation crafted by a universe master my father hired. Once activated, even a universe master would need 3 breaths to break it. In those 3 breaths, my father could reach the formation and defend it, holding out for a month. Then what? Divine Wood King directly asked. For a moment, the atmosphere became extremely awkward. Even Wu Li, who usually spoke without thinking, didn't know how to smooth things over. Hong Long, however, remained calm. He glanced at Divine Wood King and explained, "A month from now, the space-time fissures will collapse, and no more treasures will appear after that." "Brilliant," Wu Li quickly flattered. "Your father's technique is truly unique. Even the universe masters are helpless against it. Simply admirable." "You flatter me. It's just that those high and mighty universe masters don't care about these treasures. If they did, my father would probably have to give them up, considering the cost of offending a universe master is too great." Hong Long was very humble. However, Jian Wushuang felt that the cost was enough. If you offend someone, so be it, but you can't just hand things over to others, right? It's likely that the Lord of Zilong Mountain had secretly competed with many universe masters and ultimately won, allowing him to maintain control of this place. Fortunately, they didn't follow up on this topic yesterday, or it would have been a death sentence. It's more practical to cooperate honestly. "All right, let's go in directly," Hong Long said without further ado, taking out a token and directly opening the entrance to the formation. But just as everyone was about to enter, a mountain peak not far from there suddenly exploded. The massive commotion momentarily distracted everyone, drawing their attention to the exploding mountain. A purple stone qilin suddenly burst out from the mountain, its divine power already reaching 40 million. It turns out to be a purple stone qilin, just a low-grade divine beast. "Qing Xian, go and drive it away," Hong Long casually instructed, then turned his attention back to the formation. After checking the formation and finding no changes, he felt relieved. No one thought it was a coincidence. They all found it somewhat suspicious. After confirming there was no issue with the formation, Hong Long finally sighed in relief. His guard captain, Qing Xian, had already returned. Hong Long was not surprised by his own people. How could he not know their strength? This was also to warn the others, letting them know that his subordinates were not weaker than them. Especially to warn Elder Zhuge. Just because you're experienced doesn't mean you can do whatever you want and disregard him. His guard captain, Qing Xian, was also his senior sister, a disciple of his father. Divine power of 43 million, only slightly weaker than Elder Zhuge. "Young master." Qing Xian was still holding a pulsating heart. The sight made Wu Li's heart beat faster. Just now, Qing Xian had unleashed 10,000 swords in an instant, easily killing the purple stone qilin. "It's just a beast. No need to kill it." Hong Long pretended to scold. "Keep it yourself. There are plenty of monsters around here. Don't provoke them again." But just as he finished speaking, another monster appeared. Hong Long held his head, helplessly saying, "Forget it. Don't mind them. Let's go." With that, he led everyone into the space-time canyon. Upon entering, Wu Li quietly transmitted his voice. "Brother Wushuang, how does that little girl's swordsmanship compare to yours?" "No comparison. Just say who's stronger, you or her?" "She was stronger than me back then, but not now." "How long ago?" "About 100 million epochs ago." Wu Li then shut up. He didn't know much about Jian Wushuang's strength. But Hu Qing's strength had shocked him quite a bit. It seemed that Jian Wushuang was still stronger. To be so strong 100 million epochs ago. Now he had reached the 8th tribulation realm, no problem with his demigod combat power. After entering the space-time canyon, a sense of disorientation hit them. There were also some small space-time fissures, and one careless move could split the divine body in half. Though not fatal, it would damage the divine body. Now, Jian Wushuang's divine body was condensed from starry sky divine power. The previous life force and power of all things were useless now. He needed to be cautious about any treasures containing the power of the starry sky. He couldn't afford to get hurt. Otherwise, even with his origin source starry sky, recovery would be slow. While not as slow as ordinary cultivators, it would still take several hundred years. This would be considered lightning speed for ordinary cultivators. But for Jian Wushuang, who could restore his divine power in an instant in the past, it was torturously slow. Thus, once he entered the space-time fissure, he became exceptionally careful. He displayed his weakest strength and took the opportunity to walk in the middle, right next to that young master, Hong Long. The deeper they went into the space-time canyon, the more numerous the fissures became. However, these fissures were invisible like lines. They couldn't flow treasures but could cause injuries. His mind had to be taught, as one careless move could result in severe injury. Half of this strenuous task was assigned to Hong Long's guards, and the other half to Wu Li and others. However, Qing Xian and Wu Li were positioned at the front and back, one protecting Jian Wushuang and the other protecting Hong Long. As for Xianxia and Elder Zhuge, they didn't seem very eager to contribute. After spending half a day in the canyon, they had found nothing. Young Master Hong Long was not in a hurry, holding a compass in his hand, searching for the treasure he sought. Turn around. The space-time is in disarray, and we've gone the wrong way. Hong Long continuously adjusted their route. Entering the inner perimeter was quite troublesome. Without Hong Long leading the way, even if they were given the place, it would be difficult to find any treasures. Jian Wushuang had a different story. Due to the space-time disorder, his thought power was fully expanded, covering a much wider range than theirs. He had already seen a few floating treasures. Some were at the level of the 7th tribulation, and some at the 8th tribulation. He didn't pay them any mind, knowing that even the others wouldn't be interested. Otherwise, he could have used his mental power to guide them over. A powerful aura was captured by his mental power. It was a semi-divine artifact, a large seal. He felt a surge of joy in his heart. Entering the realm god continent with nothing, he needed money to buy treasures containing the power of the starry sky. Although after reaching the 8th tribulation, an epoch within his origin source could produce tens of millions of mixed yuan stones, it still wasn't enough. After painstakingly saving up 100 billion mixed primordial stone, he found out that even an ordinary treasure couldn't be exchanged for that. Because treasures containing the power of the starry sky had to be exchanged for starry sky crystals at the very least. Starry sky crystals were condensed by the starry sky itself. They were the hard currency of the starry sky. Only universe masters could condense them, and it was quite troublesome. Jian Wushuang didn't have a single one. So, upon seeing that semi-divine artifact, he felt immense joy. That semi-divine artifact, if sold, could fetch hundreds of billions of mixed yuan stones. Exchanging for starry sky crystals, he could get hundreds of them. Without starry sky treasures, absorbing starry sky crystals would work just as well. Anyway, his basic divine power was very low. The improvement was fast enough. He decided to take action, and with a thought, he guided the Great Seal towards their position. At the same time, he transmitted a message to Wu Li, instructing him to adjust his position and prepare to snatch the treasure. After all, young Master Hong Long had said that any treasures obtained would belong to them, with only his treasure being an exception. Wu Li was delighted upon hearing this, not expecting Jian Wushuang to have such abilities. After switching positions with Hu Qing, he sat and waited for the treasure to come flying over. It wasn't that Jian Wushuang didn't trust Hu Qing, but Hu Qing was not suitable for the task of turning hostile to snatch the treasure. Just as Wu Li and Hu Qing switched positions, the treasure suddenly disappeared. In its place, a terrifying aura remained. That aura was definitely not from some so-called demon or a remnant from a space-time rift. He had guided it around the space-time rift. Not good. There's another group here. He immediately understood that someone had taken advantage of the commotion outside to sneak in. Upon hearing this, Wu Li and the others were incredulous. Brother Wushuang, don't scare me. Who has such great ability to sneak in here? Earlier, young Master Hong Long had said that even a universe master could withstand this formation. Who could enter? Entering would be courting death. Under heavy rewards, brave men come forward. Indeed, a brave man had arrived. Jian Wushuang's gaze was calm as he transmitted a message. Just be careful. The intruder's strength should not exceed 50 million. 50 million? Wu Li suppressed his shock and said, 50 million is still quite a lot. Who can stop them? How about we leave? I will. Hu Qing, who had been silent, spoke up at this moment. Leave the danger to me. These words made Jian Wushuang pause, but he quickly smiled. He felt that Hu Qing was indeed reliable. Upon hearing this, Wu Li said joyfully, I knew brother Hu Qing was the strongest. Come, you handle this. In just a few breaths, Wu Li and Hu Qing switched positions again. This made many people feel strange. But before they could think too much, demons quietly approached from all sides. Be careful of those demons, young Master Hong Long shouted angrily. This time, Wu Li was not overly surprised. He took the initiative to strike, smashing several approaching demons with a single punch. Those demons each had a divine power of over 30 million. But now Wu Li's divine power had exploded, reaching around 40 million. The following demons had similar divine power, with few exceeding 40 million. The crowd remained calm. Each person had taken action except for Jian Wushuang. Wu Li was especially excited about the killing. Most of the monsters were slain by him, as if he was competing with Qing Xian on the side. At this moment, Jian Wushuang sent a voice transmission reminding, Brother Wu Li, hold back a bit. These monsters were lured here, and there are demigod-level monsters among the ones following. Although he hadn't taken action, his thought power had been observing these monsters. He felt something was amiss. The monsters were all heading towards them. Clearly, they were being targeted. Moreover, the subsequent monsters had divine power exceeding 45 million. They had to be careful. Upon hearing this, Wu Li quickly withdrew his fist, retreated behind the crowd, and covered his mouth with his fist, pretending to cough. I've used up most of my divine power. I'll leave the remaining monsters to you all. Brother Wu Li, you've worked hard. These monsters aren't worth your effort. Hong Long, the young master, didn't expect Wu Li to be so generous. He had fought through an entire group of monsters, leaving only a few stragglers before retreating. They were practically like brothers from different mothers. Otherwise, why would he help him so much? Although Wu Li's words had issues, it was impossible for his divine power to be consumed so quickly. But Hong Long felt Wu Li must have used up at least 20 to 30% of his divine power. Little did he know that Wu Li was merely warming up. The life force he obtained from Dan Bao could fill an ocean. Even if he used up 30 to 50%, he could instantly recover. You're too kind. Compared to Elder Zhuge, I'm still far behind. Wu Li deliberately praised Elder Zhuge, standing beside him and flattering, Elder Zhuge, do you find these monsters too weak to bother with? Elder Zhuge didn't say a word, merely pointing his finger and effortlessly shattering a few monsters. Unwilling to give up, Wu Li continued to praise, Elder Zhuge's divine power is indeed extraordinary. Just a casual move can crush these monsters, unlike me who used up 20 to 30% of my divine power. These monsters are too weak. Can't we get a demigod-level monster for Elder Zhuge to practice on? A so-called demigod-level monster had around 45 million divine power, but its combat ability was lacking. With the same amount of divine power, one could exhaust and kill a demigod-level monster. Just as Wu Li finished speaking, a demigod-level monster indeed appeared behind Elder Zhuge. In the southwestern corner, Jian Wushuang and an ordinary guard with divine power around 40 million were guarding. Jian Wushuang immediately pretended to explode in strength, directly performing the ancient change. His divine power increased to around 30 million. Save me! Increasing his divine power was for escape. Wu Li showed a look of surprise, quickly shouting, Elder Zhuge, I'll go save them. You block that monster. At this moment, another demigod-level monster appeared in front, which Qing Xian had already intercepted. Elder Zhuge had no choice but to grit his teeth and take action. He couldn't just pretend he didn't see it. Wu Li went to save Jian Wushuang. No one would save Hong Long's guard. If he fell, Hong Long would only resent him. After some hesitation, Elder Zhuge had to take action. He flew out. Passing by Jian Wushuang and the guard, he cursed, useless. These words were overheard by Hong Long, who frowned. Wu Li conveniently rescued the guard. This warmed Hong Long's heart. He instantly felt that the friends he made were more useful than the old retainers. At least these people obeyed him, unlike Elder Zhuge who was so arrogant. Even rescuing his own people, he hesitated, and then spoke arrogantly. Living for so long, he hadn't even reached the threshold of a demigod truly useless. Boom! Just as Jian Wushuang was fake rescued by Wu Li, a powerful aura exploded behind them. Elder Zhuge had engaged in battle with the demigod-level monster. In front, Qing Xian was also fighting evenly with the monster. For a moment, everyone had to stop. If Jian Wushuang hadn't secretly diverted many monsters, at least 10 demigod-level monsters would have attacked now. On the other side of the space-time canyon, Lion King frowned and coldly said, "Strange. Why did these monsters suddenly change direction halfway? Normal. These monsters have no will," Shizhou explained beside him, only to be kicked hard by Lion King. "Do I need you to remind me?" Lion King grew impatient and frowned, saying, "Enough. We've tested enough. It's time for us to act. Kill the remaining people and capture that young Master Hong Long." "Yes." Shizhou, who had climbed up from the ground, did not dare to show resentment and only respectfully accepted the order. They didn't know that everything was guided by Jian Wushuang, all to lure them out. If they wanted to rely on the monsters to test them, Jian Wushuang would not give them the chance. If dozens of demigod monsters really came, Hu Qing would definitely reveal his true divine power, and then the opponents would be scared away or come back with more precautions, which would be bad. The enemy was also in the dark, so they had to be more careful. Caution could be the key to eternal safety. Jian Wushuang's mind power detected several terrifying auras quietly approaching them. As soon as they entered his mind power range, he noticed their movements. Everyone, the fish have taken the bait. Everyone understood what this meant. Only the people around young Master Hong Long were still foolishly dealing with those monsters. This time, saving the other party was enough for them to kneel and thank him. If it weren't for the beast god weapon, he wouldn't have bothered to act as a bodyguard for the other party. The key was that this time the situation had escalated. They had encountered the ambushing Star Field Bandits. That terrifying aura was exactly like the Star Field Bandits young Master Hong Long had described. However, the person Jian Wushuang expected to master the Starry Sky Divine Power did not seem to be present, or perhaps no one had mastered the Starry Sky Divine Power. If they were here, it could have compensated for his losses this time. Buzz. Hu Qing was the first to start gathering energy. At the moment the Star Field Bandits approached, he took the lead and caught them off guard. Lion King, the leader of the bandits, frowned and discovered that Hu Qing's divine power was not inferior to his own, even surpassing 50 million. With just a clash of stances, he was pushed back. A massive aura exploded. Young Master Hong Long was also stunned. Seeing Lion King, he realized they had been tricked. "Forget about those monsters. Retreat first." His reaction was quick. The sudden appearance of the Star Field Bandits, combined with the burst of powerful divine power from Hu Qing and the others, left him uneasy. But retreating now? It was already too late. The Star Field Bandits were not alone. Lion King was held back by Hu Qing, while the other bandits charged at Elder Zhuge and guest official Xianxia. For a time, a fierce battle erupted around them. Guard Xianxia shook off the monsters and came to young Master Hong Long's side. At this moment, she had to ensure the young master's safety and could not leave his side. "Brother Wu Li is so strong." Young Master Hong Long was also stunned. Besides Hu Qing, Wu Li's divine power also reached about a demigod level. With a wooden sword, he had toppled several Star Field Bandits. Divine Wood King and Wu Zhuo also possessed formidable divine power exceeding 40 million. They could barely hold off those Star Field Bandits. Their treasures and divine bodies were not inferior. However, Elder Zhuge was in trouble. He not only had to deal with the demigod monster but was also besieged by 2 Star Field Bandits. Only Jian Wushuang was the most relaxed, standing behind young Master Hong Long, without any intention of making a move. Instead, he was observing these Star Field Bandits. The Lion King, with about 53 million divine power, was fighting evenly with Hu Qing's future self. The other party couldn't afford to prolong the fight. Otherwise, if young Master Hong Long's father arrived, they would all be doomed. "Hong Long, Have you notified your father? Jian Wushuang asked sideways. Seeing the embarrassed look on young Master Honglong's face, he realized something was wrong. The two only exchanged glances without saying much, for fear of alarming others. Young Master Honglong immediately transmitted a distress signal to the outside world, only to find that his mind power could not pass through the token. This place already had a chaotic spacetime, and with the barrier of the formation, the only way to communicate with the outside was through his special token. Now that the token was also isolated, he could only hope that his father could sense the commotion here. What he didn't know was that the Lion King had long used a special secret method to envelop the spacetime canyon in his formation. Now, no one from the outside could come in, and they couldn't think of leaving either. The grand formation here had effectively added to the Lion King's dowry. Instead, it would block anyone from the outside trying to enter. Looks like they came prepared. Jian Wushuang remained calm. The combat power displayed was something Hu Qing alone could handle. There was nothing to fear. Since they couldn't leave, they might as well take down the opponent. Hu Qing! Take him down! Hearing this, Hu Qing, who was entangled with the Lion King, retreated half a step, his brilliance intensifying. His future self ascended once more, jumping from 50 million to 60 million. This terrifying divine power made even Jian Wushuang gasp. He hadn't expected the second-tier future self that Hu Qing had created to be so powerful. With 60 million divine power, just a single encounter left Lion King severely injured. Feeling the intense loss of his divine body, Lion King was stunned. Who are you to possess 60 million divine power? Who I am is none of your concern. Hu Qing did not pause, raising his hand once more to strike Lion King. The first strike had already severely injured the Lion King, and the second shattered his divine body entirely. It's over. I will undoubtedly die with a third strike. Lion King was terrified, his golden armor shattered. With 60 million divine power, one could claim a territory in many star fields and become a lord. As a star field bandit, he didn't dare to provoke such an entity. This time he was doomed. Their divine power was mediocre at best, sufficient to handle someone like the Ninth Tribulation Realm Honglong, but against a powerful demigod, they were sure to fail. A perfect plan, ultimately defeated by divine power. Unwillingness filled his heart. It seems I still have to ask for help from His Majesty. Lion King's eyes flickered. He took out a token and crushed it instantly. Hu Qing noticed Lion King's action and tried to stop him, but it was too late. He could only continue attacking Lion King. But as his palm fell, Lion King's figure vanished in an instant. It's a spacetime token. He actually has a spacetime token. Honglong shouted in surprise. Hu Qing's second outburst alone was enough to amaze him. He hadn't expected Lion King, with only 50 million divine power, to possess a spacetime token. That was a treasure that could tear open spacetime. Once torn, one could escape at will. Even in this spacetime gorge, he could quickly leave. Such a life-saving super treasure, he didn't have it. He had only heard his father mention it once. Now, it was the first time he saw it. Fortunately, it was used by the opponent to escape. They were safe too. Seeing the opponent escape, Hu Qing felt some regret. Despite his usual politeness, he had no mercy for star field bandits who committed arson and looting. Lion King had escaped, but those black-clad bandits he left behind did not have spacetime tokens. Hu Qing raised his hand. His fingers pointed directly at the star field bandits, killing them instantly. With just a single point, he killed them in an instant. You should know that those bandits all possessed 40 million units of divine power. Hu Qing looked in surprise at a skeletal, odd-looking star field bandit who had managed to withstand his strike. Just as he was about to make a second move, he was stopped by Jian Wushuang. Leave a tongue. Only then did Hu Qing halt his attack. The star field bandits came quickly and died just as quickly. Now only one remained. Shijiao. He showed no fear. Seeing them hold back, he hurriedly stepped forward respectfully, saying, "Spare my life, and there will definitely be benefits." Benefits? Jian Wushuang smiled upon hearing this. The other party seemed sensible, so he asked, The treasures you bought in Xiaolong City that contain the power of the starry sky, who are they for? This was what he was most curious about. As for why they targeted the spacetime gorge, he did not care in the slightest. At this moment, young Master Hong Long also stepped forward, grabbing the man's neck and coldly asking, "And who sent you? How dare you spy on the treasures of Xiaolong Mountain?" This, Shizhou glanced at Jian Wushuang and young Master Hong Long, then finally looked towards Hu Qing. He wasn't a fool and knew who was stronger. Guest Qing Shanyang saw this and quickly soothed young Master Hong Long, saying, "Don't rush. Let him speak slowly." Only then did young Master Hong Long realize his impoliteness and slowly released Shizhou, saying in a low voice, "Tell us everything you know. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Cough, cough. Shizhou coughed a few times before staggering as he said, "So, who should I answer first?" Even at this point, the other party still dared to haggle. Jian Wushuang frowned. Though he found the other party somewhat sensible, he saw no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a calmness. This gave Jian Wushuang a bad premonition, and he signaled Hu Qing with a glance. If these Starfield bandits had a backup plan, they needed to act immediately. Enough nonsense. Jian Wushuang frowned, and with a thought, he enveloped Shizhou in his divine power. Shizhou was unfazed, but as he felt that divine power, a hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. He then grinned. "Power of the starry sky. You, a mere kid with only 20 million units of divine power, dare to inquire? I have to admire your courage. I can only tell you, some things are better left unknown." The moment his divine power enveloped Shizhou, Jian Wushuang's attention was drawn away, because around them, a pink mist had risen. "Poison!" Jian Wushuang shouted. "Quickly, retract your aura and don't let it touch you." But his warning came too late. Except for Hu Qing, who had been alerted early and stepped back half a step, everyone else was affected. Young Master Hong Long was also startled and tried to retreat, but it was too late. Pink bubbles appeared on his face, spreading along his body, causing even his divine form to start decaying. This poison was extremely potent. Even weaker demigods would perish. Seeing this, Hu Qing wanted to help but was stopped by Jian Wushuang. Such a terrifying poison, they had no idea what it was. Rushing to save them might get themselves killed too. Just moments ago, Hu Qing had unleashed 60 million units of divine power, and yet the enemy dared to scheme against them, clearly confident in their poison. Young Master Xianxia, who was responsible for protecting Hong Long, was the first to fall, being the closest to Shizhou. The poison came from Shizhou's body. Elder Zhuge's eyes widened in disbelief, his eyes losing their light. Before he died, he shouted unwillingly, "It's the Cha Luohua. You are from Du Gu's faction." With a thud, Elder Zhuge's body and divine form shattered, his origin source ceasing to function. After being poisoned, the young Master Hong Long relied on his treasures to forcibly hold on. But he could not persist for long. When he heard about Cha Luohua and Du Gu, he fell into complete despair. Cha Luohua was a top 10 deadly poison on the Realm King continent. Once a cultivator below the Universe Master was contaminated, they would undoubtedly die. However, this poison had a special smell, making it difficult to get close to. Unless someone could carry this deadly poison. The person in front of him, Shizhou, was just such a person. The only person who could carry Cha Luohua in the nearby starfields was that Emperor Du Gu. It was not that Emperor Du Gu could carry it, but one of his subordinates could. With this person, Emperor Du Gu plundered several starfields, and even Universe Masters had no way to deal with him. This person appeared here. So, the one targeting Xiaolong Mountain this time was probably Emperor Du Gu. Brother Wu Li. Before the young Master Hong Long fell, he turned to look at Wu Li. From Hu Qing's outbreak to Jian Wushuang's calmness, he could see that what Wu Li had told him before might not be a lie. They might really be super prodigies from the star field of the gods, or disciples of the spacetime divine sect with vast backgrounds. Brother Hong Long, is there anything else you want to say? Wu Li, seeing the unwillingness on his face, also felt a bit of pity. Brother Wu Li, help me deliver a message to my father. As young Master Hong Long spoke, he felt a tremor in his origin source, and he stood frozen, unable to move. Behind him, a dagger coated with poison pierced his origin source, shattering his last bit of strength. This scene startled Jian Wushuang. The attack was too fast. The guest of Xiaolong Mountain, Xianxia, turned out to be a traitor. Not only was he not poisoned, but he took the opportunity to kill the young Master Hong Long and snatched his formation compass. Jian Wushuang was not the only one stunned. Wu Li was also dumbfounded, and so was Shijiao. Haha, I didn't expect the one the Emperor mentioned was you. Fine, quickly take me away. The formation cannot stop the master of Xiaolong Mountain. The person who came to meet him appeared, and the mission was declared over. In fact, this was how it was supposed to be. It was all because Lion King was too arrogant, wanting to take down the space-time gorge by himself. How could that be possible? With divine power just over 50 million, he wanted to take down the space-time gorge. That was underestimating the master of Xiaolong Mountain too much. Xiangyang played with the compass in his hand, just about to put it away, but his expression paused. Ignoring Shijiao, he looked at Wu Li and shouted, "Catch!" Then he threw the compass to Wu Li. Huh! Wu Li instinctively caught the compass. Jian Wushuang wanted to warn him, but it was too late. Xiangyang took out a jade copper mirror and said loudly, "Everyone, don't thank me. I'll be leaving now." You? Shijiao was confused for a moment, not understanding what Xiangyang was doing. He quickly used a special method to communicate with Emperor Dugu. The order he received was the same as Xiangyang's. The two looked at each other and simultaneously took out their spacetime's tokens. Then they directly crushed them. Only Jian Wushuang and the others were left, standing dumbfounded in place. The people brought by young Master Hong Long were either dead or had betrayed him. Only a few of them remained unscathed. Now he was at a loss, holding the compass. "Brother Wushuang, you're quick-witted. Can you tell us what's going on here?" Wu Li was already dizzy from the confusion. First, Jian Wushuang stopped Hu Qing and left Shijiao behind. Then Shijiao and Cha Luohua used poison to kill everyone. Just as young Master Hong Long was about to say something, he was killed by his own guest. When Jian Wushuang saw Xiangyang with the compass, his intention seemed clear. It was simply to control the formation with the compass and loot the treasures in this place. But when the other party threw the compass to Wu Li, he couldn't understand it. Now, both of them had crushed the spacetime tokens and fled. No need to bother with them. "Frame up," Jian Wushuang growled, then laughed. "Childish tricks. I didn't expect to encounter this kind of thing just after arriving at the Realm God continent. It seems we won't be able to leave today." Upon hearing the term "frame up," everyone reacted. Framing us? What does this group of people mean? Divine Wood King was dumbfounded. They were just a group of space-time cultivators who had just entered the Realm God continent. How could they be framed? Upon hearing this, Wuxia asked, "Could it be Zamasu?" "No." Jian Wushuang shook his head, denying. "Zamasu is stronger than you think. If he knew our location, he could send a universe god to kill us all. There's no need to use such tricks to scheme against us." The key point was that Zamasu wasn't even on the Realm God continent. To Zamasu, these northern spacetime cultivators were like fish on a chopping board. Once he became a realm king, he could easily wipe out all life in the northern spacetime. There was no need to target them individually. Every time they targeted the northern spacetime, it was to destroy all its cultivators. "What are you doing?" "What am I doing?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and said, "I guess someone wants to sit back and watch the tigers fight, throwing this problem at us. Watching the tigers fight. It must be that Lord Dugu that Hong Long mentioned. If their strength was ordinary, they might have been dead long ago. There would be no value in using them. But Hu Qing's divine power had been exposed, and his second-tier future self already had top demigod strength. He could be used as a test stone. And Jian Wushuang, his hidden strength was probably exposed too. Now, if they took the compass out, they would probably face the wrath of Lord Xiaolong immediately. Getting caught with mud in the crotch, there was no way to explain it. This place was the spacetime gorge, where time and space were chaotic. Not even a universe god could reverse time here. He could only prove his innocence himself. But how? Young Master Hong Long and all his men had fallen. Not even ashes remained. How could he explain this? Why don't we run away too? Wuxia was a bit scared. The poison just now was truly terrifying. Not only him, but even Jian Wushuang was afraid. Perishing could happen in an instant. They had stayed too long in the northern spacetime without a sense of crisis. After arriving at the Realm God continent, they initially felt a bit nervous, but seeing young Master Hong Long, they thought their divine power was not weaker than his, so there was nothing to worry about. Now they were in trouble. For a moment, no one could think of a countermeasure. Run. If they could really run, it would be great. After all, coming from the star field of the gods, even if Xiaolong Mountain Lord recognized them as the culprits, he couldn't trouble the star field of the gods. But they couldn't run now. With the compass, they could find the exit. However, Xiaolong Mountain Lord was probably already waiting at the exit. Going out would lead to a fierce battle. Although Jian Wushuang didn't know the opponent's divine power, it wouldn't be less than 60 million divine power. He and Hu Qing working together could deal with the opponent without a problem. The problem was, what if they dealt with the opponent and the Star Domain bandits took advantage of the situation? This was a conspiracy against Xiaolong Mountain Lord. For them, it was an open scheme. Let's not go. Jian Wushuang made up his mind and explained. Going out now would lead to a fierce battle. Since the compass is in our hands, we might as well stay. Even if Xiaolong Mountain Lord makes a new token, he might not find us. Besides, there are many natural barriers in this place's spacetime cracks. If we have enough patience, the star field bandits will lose patience, and we can clear ourselves of suspicion. This was the best plan he could come up with. After all, there were many treasures here, and they could search for them conveniently. Why not? Once the Star Domain bandits lost patience and came out to fight with Xiaolong Mountain Lord, they might even benefit from the situation. Good. This plan is great. Upon hearing that they didn't need to go out and fight, Wuxia and Wu Li were the first to agree. Their divine power was just over 40 million. Without any major life-saving methods, going out would be tough. They would be burdens. Shenmu Wang was different. He at least had the 9th tribulation level Moyen Vine. Together, they could reach the demigod threshold. However, since everyone agreed, he had no objections. Hu Qing, as always, listened to Jian Wushuang. Then let's trouble brother Wu Li to control the compass. I'll lead the way and search for the treasures here first. The treasure Hong Long was looking for was something that could quickly make one a demigod. Initially, they didn't care, but now that Hong Long was dead, all the treasures here belonged to them. While Jian Wushuang and the others were searching for treasures. Outside Xiaolong Mountain, in a broken palace, a group of Star Domain bandits gathered. Here were familiar faces like Lion King, Shijiu, and Xianxia. Your Majesty, according to your instructions, we've given the compass to those from the star field of the gods. Xianxia bowed and reported everything. At the top of the broken palace, a solitary man in tattered battle armor, with eyes full of endless divine power, stood. Then let's wait. When those guys come out, have Zongjing and Wuya keep a close watch. In one era, regardless of whether they make a move, we will flatten Xiaolong Mountain. The crowd below responded in unison. Yes, flatten Xiaolong Mountain. The Star Domain bandits sought treasures, not territories. Emperor Dugu also aimed at the treasures Xiaolong Mountain Lord obtained initially. As for the Spacetime Canyon, it was different. The secrets within were not as simple as drifting treasures. Previously, he had sent Lion King and others to the Spacetime Canyon to verify his suspicions, and to set up a spacetime conversion array in the Spacetime Canyon, allowing entry at any time. This way, they wouldn't fear Xiaolong Mountain Lord blocking them with the Spacetime Canyon array. Xiaolong Mountain. The whole city was on alert. The news of the young lord's death in the Spacetime Canyon had spread. An enraged Xiaolong Mountain Lord gathered all the strong ones and had already arrived at the Spacetime Gorge. The city's defenses had to be solid to prevent anyone from sneaking in. The grand formation of the spacetime gorge was not as complicated as Jian Wushuang and his companions had imagined. Xiaolong Mountain Lord wouldn't be unable to enter just because he didn't have a token. When the grand formation was initially crafted, he had left a backdoor. However, only he could enter through this backdoor. Entering alone. This posed a significant risk. In the shadows, those who had wiped out the subordinates he had brought along with his son and seized the compass had clearly come prepared. Moreover, the recent arrival of star field bandits added to the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain's concerns. He wasn't worried about powerful ambushers within the spacetime rift. His fear was that the treasure he had meticulously hidden might have already been discovered. This time, the intruders were here for the treasure he had found long ago. If that was the case, he needed to be cautious. Standing at the entrance of the spacetime rift, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain secretly sent a message to the outside world. A demigod who could become a lord had some connections. The fact that he could invite a universe master to craft this grand formation showed that the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain had extraordinary connections. Brother, have you identified the culprit behind the attack on Spacetime Gorge? Through the spacetime token, this message was transmitted to a very distant star field. An ancient being opened his eyes. It's related to star field bandits, and there's more than one universe master involved. The Lord of Xiaolong Mountain's expression trembled upon hearing this. His heart grew colder. More than one universe master was eyeing him. His demigod-level combat power was at its limit. If it were several demigods, he wouldn't worry, but hearing that several universe masters were targeting him made him feel helpless. He couldn't help but sigh. The treasure he, a demigod, had found was ultimately something he couldn't keep. Do not give up. Though they dare to eye it, they won't dare to act. You are a member of the Yinglong clan. With me here, the universe masters won't act easily. At most, they will send some demigods to trouble you. However, you must stay vigilant. If someone of the same level takes your treasure, I won't be able to help you. The Yinglong clan, a renowned clan on the Realm God continent. Rumor had it that true dragons existed within the clan. A true dragon at the Universe Master level was far more powerful than a Universe Master who was a regular cultivator. The Lord of Xiaolong Mountain hailed from the Yinglong clan. Thus, he was able to guard this spacetime rift. Back then, he even invited a Universe Master to craft the formation outside the spacetime gorge. Without this background, the star field bandits would have stolen it long ago. If the Universe Masters don't intervene, I am confident. The Lord of Xiaolong Mountain clenched his fists, feeling the boundless and fierce divine power within him. This divine power was extremely ferocious. A dark red aura surged from all around. If Jian Wushuang sensed this power, he would be greatly surprised, because this power was very similar to the power of the beast gods. Be careful. If you can't hold out, abandon the spacetime gorge and return to the ancient dragon star field. No one will dare to touch you there. The Lord of Xiaolong Mountain gently shook his head and calmly sent a message. No, I never thought of returning when I left. Are you still angry about the bloodline issue? Hong Yuan, although you are of red dragon descent, the blood in your veins is of the true dragon lineage. Don't hold a grudge. This time, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain did not respond. Instead, he silently put away the communication token. Since he had figured out everything behind the scenes, there was no need for him to stay here any longer. The spacetime gorge was there. It wasn't going anywhere. What he needed to do now was to secure his position in Xiaolong City and wait for those starfield bandits to come. Among the demigods, he didn't dare to claim supremacy over the entire Realm King continent, but in the nearby starfields, no one was his match. As for Jian Wushuang and the others in the spacetime rift, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain didn't take them seriously at all. Since he could investigate Jian Wushuang's background, there was naturally nothing to fear. Moreover, he had lived for so long that he wouldn't be deceived by the tricks of those star field bandits. He wouldn't take action against Jian Wushuang and the others, but they shouldn't dream of leaving the spacetime rift alive. Just as the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain was about to leave the spacetime gorge, his brows furrowed suddenly. Beast God power. He could easily sense the beast god power coming from the spacetime gorge. And it was very pure. That power was even purer than his brother's. Impossible! He exclaimed in surprise. His nearby subordinates turned to look, thinking something had happened. Seeing the panicked expressions of his subordinates, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain regained his composure. You all stay here. I will personally go in and check. Originally, he had planned to return to Xiaolong Mountain, as the situation here was not urgent. He only needed to wait and catch them. But after sensing the pure beast god power from the space-time rift, he couldn't contain his joy. With a flash, he entered the space-time rift. Buzz! A powerful force descended. Guided by the beast god power, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain quickly approached Jian Wushuang and the others. This powerful force was soon noticed by Jian Wushuang. It wasn't due to a mental probe but rather the attraction between similar powers. Jian Wushuang had just collected a treasure containing starry sky power when he felt the threat. They had been searching for treasures in the space-time rift for several days. Because his mental power was vast, he could explore a wide range, so they quickly gathered all the treasures drifting in the space-time rift. Among them were many treasures containing starry sky power, which naturally all went to him. As for other treasures, they were divided between King Shinmu and Wu Li. Hui Qing and Wu Zhuo didn't care for these treasures. Although every 10,000 eras brought a treasure hunt, and each time some special treasures appeared, their value was limited. The most special treasure this time was the one the young Master Honglong had been looking for. Jian Wushuang had just exposed himself using beast god power because of that treasure. It was a blood pool containing beast god power. If one soaked in it using beast god power, it could nurture the divine body. If all the beast god power in the blood pool was absorbed, it could increase divine power by millions. Of course, it also depended on who absorbed it. For Jian Wushuang, whose divine body only had 15 million divine power, absorbing this blood pool could increase his divine power by millions. Unfortunately, his divine body was not a beast god body. The augmented beast god power didn't come from his divine body but from the supreme treasure. So, it couldn't increase his divine power. The same applied to others. However, such a special treasure, even if he couldn't use it himself, could be sold for a good price. This time, it hadn't been a wasted trip. But now, after sensing that intense beast god power, Jian Wushuang felt a bit regretful. What's wrong? Wu Zhuo noticed Jian Wushuang's expression and quickly asked. The intense beast god power was rapidly approaching. It would only take an hour to reach this place. And here it was already the core of the space-time rift. To approach so quickly, one had to either be incredibly powerful or be so familiar with this place that they could navigate it with pinpoint accuracy. Within the entire Xiaolong Mountain territory, the only one with such capability was the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Jian Wushuang felt his breathing become a bit tense and hurriedly reminded, "Someone is approaching us, and it is very likely the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain." What? Hearing this response, not only Wu Zhuo, but also King Shinmu and Wu Li were stunned. Didn't you say he couldn't get in? That was just my guess. Jian Wushuang gritted his teeth and said, "Moreover, he didn't come in right away. Either he encountered obstacles outside that he has now cleared, or it's because of that blood pool." Both guesses had some persuasive power. However, they hadn't hit the mark. The group, new to all this, had no idea about the background and details of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. But it wasn't their fault. Even the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain's own son didn't know about this matter. So what do we do now? Hu Qing didn't say much but asked for a strategy. Soldiers come, we block. Water rises, we cover with earth. This was Hu Qing's style. Panicking was useless. But this time, Jian Wushuang also had no solution. Since the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain could enter, what other method could he think of? There was only one entrance here. To be precise, there was another entrance. It was the massive space-time rift. But none of them dared to enter. Even if it meant fighting to the death with the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain, they wouldn't dare to enter. The space-time of Realm God Continent was extremely difficult to break. Even universe masters could do it only rarely. It was conceivable how strong this space-time was. How much divine power did these people have? Entering the space-time rift recklessly would only lead to death. After a brief silence, Jian Wushuang spoke again. Let's approach the space-time rift first. When they arrive, we'll try to explain. If that fails, we'll fight. This is our only option. King Shenmu sighed slightly. Wu Li felt a bit embarrassed. This time it was still because of his problem. He had wanted to help young Master Honglong with a small matter and then bring up the issue of the beast god weapon. But who could have expected to encounter star field bandits? And at the critical moment, young Master Honglong had even fallen. Let's go. Head to the space-time rift first. In the entire space-time canyon, the largest rift was at the deepest part of the canyon. The treasures they searched for also drifted out from there. When they arrived, since they had the space-time rift at their backs, Jian Wushuang didn't believe the opponent would dare to strike too harshly. As they hurried, Jian Wushuang was also enhancing his basic divine power. The treasures he had obtained were enough to boost some divine power, preventing the waste of time during a fight. Taking this opportunity, he frantically absorbed the starry sky power within them. A small pale blue flag in his hand dimmed in just an instant. Only increased by 1.5 million? This small flag was a top-tier universe treasure of the 8th tribulation level. The starry sky power it contained only increased his divine power by about 1.5 million. The remaining items were even less effective. Fortunately, there were several of them. He kept absorbing. His divine power barely reached about 20 million. With the tribulation armor, it was 25 million. But it was still far too little. And the cost was enormous. So many universe treasures at the 8th tribulation level, yet they only increased his divine power by such a small amount. His basic divine power needed to reach 30 million, even 40 million. How much starry sky power would he need? Thinking of this gave Jian Wushuang a headache. The Hunyuan stone in his hand no longer seemed appealing. He didn't have any starry sky crystals either. He felt powerless. When they reached the edge of the space-time rift, everyone was stunned. It was the first time they had seen such a rift. The shock they felt was 10 times stronger than when they had sensed it with their mental power. There was no doubt that the power contained within this rift was far stronger than any space-time power they had ever seen. A place even more terrifying than the abyss. How do you think this was formed? Hearing this question, even Jian Wushuang shook his head. Creating such a massive space-time rift in the northern space-time wasn't difficult. But making it so the space-time couldn't heal was a challenge. The divine power needed to be over 30 million. Back when they fought in the lower-tier spacetimes, they created quite a few of these rifts. The Realm King himself had to repair them. On the Realm God continent, even if Jian Wushuang used all his strength, he couldn't make the spacetime fracture, let alone create a rift that couldn't heal. It must have been a universe master, and a very powerful one at that, like Zamasu. This was the periphery of the star field of the gods, so it was possible that a great battle had occurred here in the past. For instance, the starry sky secret realm that Wu Li and others had found, where even universe masters had fallen. Speaking of that secret realm, Jian Wushuang's brow furrowed. Perhaps there was a story they didn't know about that happened near the star field of the gods, creating treasures like the Spacetime Gorge and the Starry Sky Secret Realm. But all this seemed distant to them. For now, they needed to focus on dealing with the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Buzz! A strong divine power shook the surrounding spacetime. Soon, a figure bathed in waves of red divine power appeared before them. There was no need to ask. This was the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. Greetings, Lord! Without hesitation, everyone respectfully saluted upon seeing his arrival. Etiquette first, then force. They couldn't lose their momentum, nor could they be unreasonable. Honglong's fall had little to do with them. They couldn't take all the blame. But the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain didn't see it that way. He had ventured here to seek the power of the beast god. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come. It was too important. The practitioner containing the power of the beast god had purer power than even his brother's beast god power, comparable to the ancestral dragon. His brother was a universe master and a very powerful one at that. As for the ancestral dragon of the Yinglong clan, he was even more unfathomable. He had only seen him once. His gaze swept over the crowd. Soon, his eyes locked onto Jian Wushuang. He could sense that the power came from within Jian Wushuang. Was Hong Long's matter your doing? Though he could crush them, he didn't directly kill them for their treasures. The sudden intensity startled Jian Wushuang, who didn't know the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain had restrained himself from acting immediately. This time, Wu Li had taken the lead, so naturally, he stepped forward to answer. Reporting to the elder, Hong Long's matter wasn't our doing. It was those Starry Sky bandits who previously entered Xiaolong City, and they also had a space-time token. Before Wu Li could finish speaking, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain snorted coldly. A space-time token? Such a treasure, he barely had a few, and none were given to his descendants. How could he believe this? Wu Li also knew his explanation sounded far-fetched. It sounded more like a perfunctory lie, but that was the truth. Two seemingly unremarkable demigod powerhouses had both taken out space-time tokens, and after failing to defeat them, had fled. It's absolutely true, with our level of power. How could we dare deceive the Lord? After finishing his words, Wu Li bowed deeply. Jian Wushuang and the others held their breaths, waiting for the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain to speak. Whether it would be battle or peace depended on his next words. However, judging by the other party's demeanor, it seemed unlikely they would leave safely today. Such a flimsy excuse, even a 3-year-old wouldn't believe it, let alone the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. The atmosphere gradually cooled, and a murderous intent began to show in the eyes of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. His gaze then shifted towards Jian Wushuang. Fine. I will temporarily believe your words. With these words, not only did Jian Wushuang not feel relieved, but his heart grew even heavier, because he could see the killing intent in the other party's eyes. He just didn't know what tactics the person before him would use against them, or what his intentions were. With such powerful divine power, if it were him, he would definitely not waste words and would directly slaughter them. He wanted to see what tricks the other party had up their sleeve. Upon hearing the other party's seemingly agreeable words, Wu Li's face brightened, and he stood up, suppressing his joy, then spoke sorrowfully. The fall of Brother Hong Long saddens me as well. Until his death, he kept murmuring about finding that treasure. Otherwise, we would have reported the news of his death long ago. This also explained why they hadn't immediately reported the incident. But the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain showed no interest in this explanation. The fall of Hong Long, to a powerhouse of his level, wasn't even a significant blow. His previous intention to pass on his position was because he had reached a bottleneck. He had reached the perfection stage within the tribulation. The next step was to prepare for the divine tribulation. Therefore, he had paid a little attention to his descendants. Many of his descendants had already fallen. He had only treated Hong Long differently this time because he hoped Hong Long could protect his Xiaolong Mountain. The fall had happened, and so be it. As long as he could become a universe master, he could cultivate even stronger descendants. Why would he ruin his grand plan over such a small matter? Jian Wushuang saw this clearly, which is why he remained vigilant. Not avenging his son, yet seeking them out, there must be another reason. I can let go of Hong Long's matter, but among you, whoever used the beast god power must stay. The rest I can let live. Beast god power. Upon hearing this, Wu Li and the others were stunned. Previously, only Jian Wushuang had used the beast god power once, to absorb the blood pool. Turned out to be about that matter. They were still not out of trouble. Seeing this, Wu Li quickly put on a fawning smile, taking out the blood pool and said, "Senior, you must be mistaken. We are all human. How could we have beast god power? The beast god power you saw came from this blood pool, which is the treasure Brother Hong Long was looking for. Now that you are here, I hand it over to you, to honor Brother Hong Long's spirit in heaven." Smack! As soon as Wu Li offered the treasure, it was slapped away by the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain. A treasure containing beast god power meant nothing to him. That bit of power wasn't worth a glance. If one could control beast god power like Hong Long's son, it could increase basic divine power by tens of millions. But to the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain, who had reached demigod perfection, Even an increase of 10,000 was difficult. How could he care about such a treasure? Seeing this, Wuli knew he couldn't deceive him and stepped back half a step, saying nothing more. The others did the same. Clearly, they were ready to fight desperately. The Lord of Xiaolong Mountain was a bit surprised, not expecting these people to be so united, with no one seeking to save themselves. Although he had not thought about letting anyone go, wouldn't one typically cherish even a sliver of hope? It seems you aren't planning to talk. The divine power of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain surged, instantly surpassing 60 million. And it was just his basic divine power. There was no need to use any secret arts. His basic divine power had already reached 65.5 million. With a slight use of secret arts, it could break 70 million. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but swallow hard. The pressure was immense. However, Hu Qing and the others were not the least bit flustered. Hu Qing aside, he might still have a trump card. But Wu Li remained calm and composed. This made Jian Wushuang suspect that Wu Li might also have a hidden card. Wu Zuo was indifferent because he had absolute faith in himself and Hu Qing. Divine Wood King was somewhat tense but not panicked. He had seen such scenes many times. Back when they faced Qi Zhouxiao, it was far more thrilling than this. Just as everyone was preparing to face the threat head-on, Jian Wushuang spoke up. Wait! Upon hearing this, the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain turned to look at Jian Wushuang. He already knew the problem lay with Jian Wushuang, and his earlier words were meant to make Jian Wushuang speak voluntarily. Possessing the power of the beast god, and in such a pure form, he didn't believe Jian Wushuang was a human. He was likely a super beast god of the demon race. If he captured him and extracted his complete origin source to transform himself, the value would be infinite. This was why the various demon clans treated those super beast gods like treasures. Beast gods were graded, and the most heaven-defying beast gods, once they became universe masters, were nearly invincible. They would inevitably be carefully protected and slowly nurtured. He highly suspected Jian Wushuang was a super beast god in disguise as a human. So he cautiously probed. Senior, Jian Wushuang, unaware of his thoughts, proactively took out a beast god weapon and said, "This treasure, I obtained by chance. Using it, I can wield the power of the beast god." The treasure he brought out was the beast god weapon, Eye of the Candle Dragon, which he had obtained earlier. The Candle Dragon belonged to the dragon race. Moreover, it was a top-tier beast god among the dragon race. When the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain saw that eye, he couldn't help but feel moved, and his expression changed. "You actually have such a treasure." He could hardly believe it. Jian Wushuang had casually taken out the super treasure he had dreamed of for so long. He also had one such treasure, but he knew it was incomplete. And that treasure was the beast god weapon Jian Wushuang had been searching for. The last of the 9 beast god weapons. The demon dragon's blade. He knew the last beast god weapon was in Xiaolong Mountain. But he hadn't expected it to be in the hands of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain, who cherished it like a precious gem. This left him somewhat puzzled. Although the beast god weapon was somewhat special, a single beast god weapon was only at the level of the 7th tribulation. A demigod lord, taking a fire poker as a treasure? Senior, this treasure is just an ordinary item refined by a beast god. This left him silent. However, the eyes of the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain widened like copper bells. Then he suddenly awoke. He remembered that when he first obtained the demon dragon blade, he also thought that this treasure was very ordinary. But when he used his true dragon power, he discovered that the demon dragon blade could actually strengthen his true dragon power. Moreover, it contained a complete demon dragon origin source. Initially, the origin source was at the 7th tribulation level, but he later raised it to the 9th tribulation. Originally, his divine power was only 50 million, but he could unleash an attack of 70 million divine power. An increase of a full 20 million divine power. In the end, through his elder brother within the clan, he upgraded the demon dragon blade to the ultimate level. That is a divine weapon. The origin source within the demon dragon blade also reached the universe god level. Completely ultimate origin source. Comprehending it was equivalent to comprehending the origin source of a universe god. Subsequent divine power increases were also rapid. His basic divine power reached over 60 million. With the enhancement of the demon dragon blade, he feared no demigod. This was his confidence. The demon dragon blade was one of the two most important treasures he had obtained in the spacetime gorge back then. The other one wasn't very helpful to him now, but it would be of great help when he became a universe god in the future, although it was useless to him now. Yet someone had their eyes on it, because even a universe god would fight for that treasure. However special it might be, it was of no help to him now. What could currently enhance his divine power was still the demon dragon blade. Kid, where did you get this treasure? The Lord of Xialong Mountain couldn't help but reveal a look of greed in his eyes. However, he didn't snatch it directly. Instead, he wanted to ask for more information. Even a child of 3 years old would understand from his previous behavior that he was clearly coveting Jian Wushuang's eye of the candle dragon. Jian Wushuang paused for a moment before replying, "Senior, I obtained this treasure unintentionally in the star field of the gods. Back then, when my strength was weak, it was helpful to me. But now it is of no use to me. Just now, because I obtained that blood pool, I felt that their auras were the same, so I thought to test it out." His eyes were clear, and he actually hadn't lied much. A powerful being could see through lies at a glance. The Lord of Xialong Mountain stared at Jian Wushuang for a long time. Then with a flick of his finger, he directly grasped the eye of the candle dragon in his hand. After sensing the origin source within it, the Lord of Xialong Mountain could tell that Jian Wushuang wasn't lying. Because the origin source inside was just a trace. Although Jian Wushuang thought it was complete, it was still far from it. With a slight movement, the beast god weapon candle dragon opened up. There was the heart of the candle dragon, the wings of the candle dragon, the armor of the candle dragon, and so on. The Lord of Xialong Mountain wasn't interested in these. He only cared about the origin source. That origin source was very weak, but it had endless potential for enhancement. That was enough. Jian Wushuang proactively offered up the beast god weapon, making Hui Qing and the others feel it was a bit too humble. In fact, he could have fought. At this moment, Wuli sent a voice transmission, saying, "Brother Wushuang, this is your precious treasure. Are you just going to give it away like that?" Evidently, even he found it a bit unbelievable. Back when Jian Wushuang was still an emperor, Wuli knew about Jian Wushuang's treasure, which could amplify the beast god's power. With this treasure, Jian Wushuang shone brightly during his emperor period, making the entire green grass 16 nations bow down. The title of Invincible Emperor, or Invincible Tao Lord, was closely tied to this beast god weapon. Just giving it away like that indeed seemed unreasonable. Jian Wushuang smiled wryly and sent a calm voice transmission. "If I don't hand it over, he will act immediately. So what? I still have..." Wu Li was about to reveal his trump card when he saw Jian Wushuang shaking his head proactively. This wasn't the time to use their trump card. Jian Wushuang had his own plans. He knew that Star Field bandits were watching from the shadows. If they fought with the Xialong Mountain Lord now, it would only benefit others who would reap the rewards. It was better to give the treasure to the opponent for now, preserving and concealing their strength. Let both sides be unaware of their true divine power. When the Star Field bandits fought with the Xialong Mountain Lord, they could then strike from behind. Wouldn't that be perfect? Now it depended on what the Xialong Mountain Lord would say. If he really wanted to fight, there would be no choice. Not acting now was the best strategy. The Xialong Mountain Lord held the eye of the candle dragon, and most of his doubts vanished. But he wouldn't let go of such a treasure so easily. Since Jian Wushuang and his companions were of no further use, there was only one path left for them. Just as he was about to act, the space-time gorge began to tremble. Auras rose continuously. The surrounding formations started to break. What is this? The Xialong Mountain Lord was shaken. He didn't know that his space-time gorge had been previously restricted by Lion King and the others with a space-time grand formation. It was a formation that could be placed within space-time cracks, created by a universe god. "Ha! Brother Hong Yuan, long time no see." An arrogant voice sounded from behind. Jian Wushuang and the others immediately saw the face of the newcomer. Buzz. In the turbid space, a burly figure stepped forward, each step causing space-time to tremble, with thunderbolts appearing in the surrounding cracks. It's you. The Xiaolong Mountain Lord turned his head and saw the face clearly. Luo Lan, a member of the Luo family from the Silver Blue Star Field, a powerful demigod. Moreover, he was an extremely strong demigod. He could be considered the strongest demigod in the entire Silver Blue Star Field. His status was only inferior to the 4 universe gods. The Luo family was founded by a universe god, but the actual controller was Luo Lan standing before them. Besides him, several other powerful demigods descended around them. They did not seem to be star field bandits. So it's you. The Xiaolong Mountain Lord was somewhat surprised but not too shocked. The original information indicated a demigod. Although the guise was that of Starfield bandits, they weren't all Starfield bandits. Because this fat piece of meat couldn't be swallowed by the Starfield bandits alone. And those great families needed to save face. Using the identity of Starfield bandits was just a cover. Wearing wolf skins to do wolf deeds. Jian Wushuang also saw that these people were not in league with the previous Starfield bandits. Seeing their appearance, he felt relieved. He originally thought he would have to maneuver a bit more, but it turned out to be seamless. Wu Li. When they start fighting, stand on the side of the Xiaolong Mountain Lord. Jian Wushuang first provided some explanations to prevent any misalignment later. His treasures were still with the leader of Xiaolong Mountain, so naturally, he sided with him. Wu Li and the others nodded in agreement and gathered together, preparing to watch the upcoming battle. The leader of Xiaolong Mountain scanned the crowd, frowned, and shouted angrily, "You filthy ants! Get off my territory!" As soon as he finished speaking, the demon dragon blade in his hand erupted. Divine power swept through the surrounding space-time rifts, directly repelling the encircling demigods to the periphery. The powerful divine power made Jian Wushuang and the others break into a cold sweat. Fortunately, the earlier attack bypassed them. Wu Li frowned deeply as he watched, clearly indicating that his hidden cards were not enough to deal with such a situation. "Young ones, hide behind me." The leader of Xiaolong Mountain glanced back at Jian Wushuang and the others, then leaped forward, a black shadow charging straight at Luo Lan. Such formidable power had already reached 70 million divine power. Luo Lan frowned and swallowed hard, having no choice but to face him head-on. Now he felt a bit regretful, regretting not listening to the Starfield bandits. According to the Starfield bandits' plan, they wanted the leader of Xiaolong Mountain to attack Jian Wushuang and the others first, to test the strength of both sides. The earlier outburst from Hui Qing, with 60 million divine power, had made the Starfield bandits very wary, hoping to reap the benefits later. But seeing Jian Wushuang willingly hand over his treasures, Luo Lan couldn't sit still anymore. This time, attacking Xiaolong Mountain for the treasures was of great significance. The 4 universe masters of the Silver Blue Star Field all placed great importance on this action. There were also several universe masters supporting the Starfield bandits. Therefore, this matter had to be quick, precise, and ruthless. There was only one treasure, but there were many universe masters, so they had to act first to gain the upper hand. Outside the territory of Xiaolong Mountain, the leading demigod of the Starfield bandits, Lord Dugu, was watching the battle in the space-time canyon through the barrier. The leader of Xiaolong Mountain's strength was indeed, as they had guessed, incomparably powerful. He made ruthless moves right from the start. Luo Lan and the others, leading the Silver Blue Star Field, had already lost many demigods. You should know that the demigods Luo Lan brought all had divine power above 55 million. Originally planning to form a formation to trap and kill the leader of Xiaolong Mountain, they ended up being slaughtered by him one by one. Even forming a formation with divine power exceeding 65 million, they still couldn't stop the leader of Xiaolong Mountain. Luo Lan, leading the group, had a divine power of 68 million, pushing to his limit, but still couldn't block the leader of Xiaolong Mountain. At this moment, he anxiously sent a message to Lord Dugu, hoping he would intervene. "Tsk tisk." Lord Dugu shook his head and smiled bitterly upon hearing the message, mocking himself. These fools, They really don't see Hong Long as a threat. As a star field bandit, Lord Dugu had been rampaging across several star fields for many years, living so freely. One reason was his strong background, not inferior to the leader of Xiaolong Mountain, Hong Long. The second reason was his accurate intelligence. He had reported that Hong Long's divine power exceeded 70 million. Others didn't believe it, but he did, because he had dealt with the leader of Xiaolong Mountain a long time ago, knowing his character and background. As a Hong Long divine beast of the dragon race, Hong Long was a mid-tier divine beast. His basic divine power exceeded 60 million, and in peak state, his divine power was definitely above 70 million, so he was cautious. Earlier, waiting for Jian Wushuang and the others to make a move to test, he didn't expect Jian Wushuang to surrender. Then it was Luo Lan and the others taking the lead, all part of his meticulous plan. Your Majesty, Luo Lan can't hold on much longer. If we don't take action now, Zhongjing might activate the final barrier to destroy the entire space-time canyon. Shi Zhou's weak voice echoed in the hall. Lord Du Gu's brow twitched. He turned to look at Shi Zhou and said coldly, "Are you threatening me?" "You can think of it that way." Shi Zhou's words made Lord Du Gu's subordinates unhappy, and the Lion King immediately stood up, wanting to teach Shi Zhou a lesson, but was stopped by Lord Du Gu. "Continue." With divine power under 50 million, Shi Zhou couldn't stir up any trouble. However, the person behind him was not simple. Shi Zhou raised his head and looked directly at Lord Du Gu, calmly saying, "My master has said that to deal with Hong Yuan, we must have Luo Lan. If Luo Lan dies, this plan will fail. It seems you're quite close to Zhongjing." Lord Du Gu stretched his neck, slowly descended from the throne, walked to Shi Zhou's side, and suddenly extended his arm, grabbing Shi Zhou by the neck and lifting him to his eye level. With a cold tone, he said, "Next time, if you sabotage my plan, I can forgo the treasures, but your lives must be forfeited." He had survived for such a long time. Lord Du Gu had one more crucial factor. That was strength. His combat power also surpassed 70 million. In this plan to flatten Xiaolong Mountain, there were 3 super demigods. One was Luo Lan, who was now severely injured. He was a powerful demigod brought by the silver-blue starfield, naturally belonging to their side. The second was Lord Du Gu from the Starfield Pirates side. The last one was Shi Zhou's master. Also, the master who crafted the restrictions. The prodigy of the Zong family, a famous demigod powerhouse in the northern starfield of the Realm King continent. From the Kunping family of the demon race. Zong Qian. Lord Du Gu slightly loosened his grip and threw Shi Zhou aside. "Tell Zong Qian if he's going to join in, then do it properly. Stop with the tricks. If you push Hong Yuan back to the dragon race, no one will be able to handle it." Shi Zhou got up and showed a respectful demeanor. "Rest assured, Your Majesty, I will relay your message to my master, because if they delayed any longer, Luo Lan would truly fall." In the canyon of space-time, the humming sound of divine power was deafening. Jian Wushuang and others stood obediently at the back, not daring to breathe. Too powerful. This was the strongest being they had seen since coming to the Realm God continent. The divine power unleashed by the Lord of Xiaolong Mountain was a staggering 72 million. Moreover, he could tell that the other party had not yet reached his limit or even his peak. A demigod strong to this extent. Perhaps they didn't understand, but Wu Li, who had also spent many years on the Realm God continent, couldn't help but take a deep breath and exclaimed, "The Lord's divine power is likely among the top 10 in the entire northern starfield of the Realm God continent. With such powerful divine power, unless a universe master appears, he is unbeatable." So exaggerated? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but exclaim. If that was the case, then what about his beast god weapon? He couldn't afford to lose his own beast god weapon while failing to obtain the opponent's. Calculating his current divine power, Jian Wushuang didn't dare to act rashly. He continued to wait, waiting for those Starfield pirates. He knew more than one group was eyeing this place. His own divine power was now 25 million. If he used the super eternal ancient transformation, it would be 50 million. With the blessing of the origin source Dao Arena, breaking through 70 million would still be difficult. His origin source was only at the 8th tribulation level, so it was an exaggeration to amplify 50 million divine power. If it were to amplify 40 million divine power, that would be increasing it by half, which was 20 million divine power. But if it were 50 million divine power, it would be difficult to increase it by even 40%. If he acted recklessly, he would not win. Hu Qing blinked and firmly said, "If he hasn't hidden any divine power, I should be able to withstand it." Withstand it? Wuxia quickly came over and asked, "Little brother Hu Qing, don't act recklessly at this time. My 70 million divine power, it's not that I don't believe you, but how long have you been at the 9th tribulation level?" "Enough!" Jian Wushuang interrupted everyone's concerns and said, "It's not over yet, is it?" As soon as he finished speaking, the space-time around them trembled again. 2 terrifying auras descended simultaneously. Along with them came dozens of powerful demigods. Among them were familiar auras like the Lion King and Shijiu. The divine power of these 2 was ordinary, but they had many means and couldn't be underestimated. As for the 2 terrifying auras, Jian Wushuang felt it was hard to breathe and exclaimed in surprise, "They're here. They are our reinforcements. Their divine power is no less than Xiaolong Mountain Lord." Ha! After carefully probing one of the auras, he frowned even more. The power of the starry sky. That aura was all too familiar to him. This time, a truly significant figure had arrived. Before they could react, Xiaolong Mountain Lord was already in front of them. Roland was severely injured, lying prostrate in the void. "Zong Qian." Xiaolong Mountain Lord looked at the blue figure in disbelief and exclaimed, "You are a super divine beast, and you also wield the power of the starry sky. Do you want to wade into these troubled waters? A super divine beast and the power of the starry sky." Standing on either of those was already a reserved seat for super powerhouses. Standing on both, that made an absolute super genius. Before becoming a demigod, they would be carefully protected by their family. After becoming a demigod and gaining the ability to protect themselves, they generally ventured into the secret realms of the starry sky or went to some dangerous places to seek opportunities. But now they were mingling with the Starfield bandits. Xiaolong Mountain Lord, being a dragon and naturally aware of the other's highly esteemed status, was extremely surprised. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang didn't understand much, but seeing Xiaolong Mountain Lord's surprised expression, he knew the other party was not to be trifled with. Whether in strength or background, they were formidable. "Just helping a friend," Zong Qian said arrogantly. "If you're sensible, you can give me the treasure directly. For your brother's sake, I can compensate you with some other treasures." Zong Qian's overbearing manner didn't make Hong Yuan feel uncomfortable at all, because the other party had the ability to back it up. "Zong Qian, I have no grievances against you. Do you really want to force me?" Hong Yuan was not frightened by the other party's words. He had his own confidence. With the demon dragon's blade in hand, he feared no super beast. Only the power of the starry sky made him somewhat apprehensive. Moreover, this was the space-time gorge. If a fight broke out, their divine power could destroy this place. "I'm not bargaining with you. Answer my question. Dream on. Then there's nothing more to talk about." Zong Qian stopped wasting words and directly attacked. Boom! A huge explosion resounded as the massive form of the Kunping appeared. Blue arcs of electricity burst forth, and divine power soared above 7,500. Hong Yuan took a deep breath and charged forward, gritting his teeth. His figure flashed, revealing his true form. A gigantic red dragon rose into the sky, facing the Kunping head-on. A middle-tier beast against a super beast, and a super beast that mastered the power of the starry sky at that. This scene made Jian Wushuang and the others completely lose their desire to join the battle. They were already considering their escape routes. But there was another super strong individual nearby who had not yet taken action, merely watching them. They couldn't even run. Jian Wushuang and the others could only avoid the opponent's gaze. But the more they avoided, the more brazen the opponent's gaze became. "Is it that little monk?" Lord Du Gu's eyebrows twitched as he stared at Hu Qing. It's him. I don't know what secret method he used, but his divine power surged to 60 million, and it didn't even seem to be his peak. The Lion King answered respectfully. Interesting. It looks like Zhongqian doesn't need my help over there. Once he gets that treasure, I'll go contend with him. In the meantime, I have time to meet him. With a shake of his throne, Lord Du Gu instantly appeared in front of Hu Qing. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but shout, "Be careful!" But it was already too late. Lord Du Gu didn't give them a chance to breathe and attacked immediately upon arrival. Hu Qing didn't even have time to use his future self. He was directly captured by the opponent. With one hand, Lord Du Gu grabbed Hu Qing's head. "Not as exaggerated as they said?" Lord Du Gu said, applying more force. Hu Qing's face showed pain as he struggled in vain. Buzz! Jian Wushuang couldn't bear this situation and exploded in rage. Super ancient transformation. The thick power of the starry sky burst forth instantly. The aura shook. Even Zhongqian, who was fighting the Lord of Zhalong Mountain, paused to look at Jian Wushuang. The power of the starry sky? This was an extremely rare power, and few cultivators could master it, even fewer than the number of super beasts. The Lord of Zhalong Mountain couldn't help but exclaim, he actually mastered the power of the starry sky. He had previously dismissed Jian Wushuang as just a lucky kid. Unexpectedly, he had mastered the power of the starry sky. Moreover, for some reason, Jian Wushuang's divine power had doubled. From 25 million, it had directly reached 50 million. Lord Du Gu, who was holding Hu Qing's head, was also stunned. Although surprised that Jian Wushuang mastered the power of the starry sky, he still found Jian Wushuang's 50 million divine power insufficient. "Is this all the power you have?" Divine Wood King heard and moved, shouting angrily, "And me! Moyun transformation!" With a roar, the Devil Cloud appeared and fused completely with Divine Wood King. Devil Cloud transformation. Buzz! The fully fused Godwood King also reached a divine power of 50 million. "Friend Wushuang, I will help you." "And me!" Wuzhou also exploded in full force using the tenfold Realm King Fist. His divine power also surged to 50 million. Wuli looked around and found that only he was left. But his divine power did not reach 50 million. I also have a trump card." Wuli gritted his teeth, looked at Lord Du Gu, and said viciously, "In the end, we'll all die." His madness startled even Jian Wushuang. The others had 50 million divine power, only Wu Li was left. Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment and persuaded, "Brother Wu Li, don't say anything. Today I'll risk it all." Wu Li took out a wooden token and crushed it, shouting, "Come out!" Crack! Wood chips scattered. After several breaths, nothing happened.